Okay, good afternoon to you piano sickos out there. We're back on this afternoon with another episode of
PSI, Marc and Elmer's PSI Piano Scene Investigations. Da, da, da.
Da, da, da.
Yep. So what are we doing today?
What are we doing today? Okay, well, let me start off by saying, for the first time in my 20-year experience playing the piano over at the mall, a drunk fell on me.
A what?
A drunk!
A
drunk, D-R-U-N-K.
All the way from the second balcony?
No, not from the second balcony. He just came over and
sat down.
I could smell him from, from across the whole waiting area.
He didn't barf, did he?
No, he didn't barf. No yakking, no tossing of cookies. No, nothing like that. No, I'm glad he didn't yak, so it's good.
He didn't talk, he just...
No, well, he came over and he wanted to know if I could play the Peanuts song.
Aww.
So I played the Peanuts song. The Charlie Brown.
That put him to sleep, huh?
That deal. No, but then he started dancing around in the waiting area.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that was the bad part.
Oh, that could have put some Chucky stuff up.
Yeah, it could have, but it didn't. He was kind of stumbling all over here and there, and he was making a...
Does they serve alcohol there?
No, they don't serve alcohol, but he obviously had some because you could smell it on
in the mall and stuff, there's no alcohol being served.
No.
They don't do beer in there, none.
No, they don't.
Probably would be hard because you can't control the environment and they're underage kids there.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
but they did. There was one time, I think it was 3 years ago, they had serving beer in the food court on tap, but they had it all fenced off, and you had to show an ID before you could get in. But they were closed most of the day, and so people kept going in there just to sit down and eat because there was nobody around. It wasn't crowded. So, but anyway, so this guy, he just comes over and he just stumbles over. Can you play Peanuts? Can you play Peanuts?
God.
I was like, so, okay. He says, I'll play over here. And you go over there.
Yeah,
it was about late 20s, early 30s, probably.
Really?
Yeah. So, and anyway, so I played Peanuts for him, and he's over there trying to look like the Peanuts cartoons. And then you think it would end there, but no, it doesn't. It doesn't. So he comes over. He says, do Sesame Street. Do Sesame Street.
Oh, God.
So, to humor him, some people actually like the playing. So I played the opening to Sesame Street.
Oh.
So,
how's that go?
Well, let's see. Da 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 da. Da, 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 to get to Sesame Street. Yeah, sorry, folks.
Yeah, they're singing for you.
Yeah, we get lost here every once in a while. So I started playing that, and thank goodness
he left.
Well, yeah, he did
Or he passed
eventually
out
leave.
on the sofa.
No, he didn't pass out. He eventually left. His phone went off.
Oh.
And so I guess
he had to move.
Yeah, so he had his phone called. Somebody called him, and I guess he had a ride, so he had to go to the front of the the store to go get to his ride. But he thanked me profusely and said, "Thank you, man. Thank you, man."
Tip.
No, well, no. But he said, "Thank you."
Oh man.
So, but that was pretty much the experience this week. So,
Wow.
and if you are out there, sir, uh,
Try some tea.
try some tea. What he said.
You like the tea?
Oh, it's very good. It's very aromatic. We've had that one before.
Yeah, I think so. I like tea, black tea, but also green tea as well, and sometimes herbal when it's helpful or useful. But seriously, I'm really nuts for a really good black tea, and I have a collection here in the home where I've collected things from all over the world. Really.
Yeah.
But more recently, I had found a jar. It was like a jam jar with some black tea in the bottom, and I opened it up. And it was so aromatic. I love Earl Grey, which is bergamot oil that they put in the black tea. And it was a gift. Well, actually, there were two different jars, and they were both gifts from Iranian friends of mine in Cyprus. There was a lot of Iranian people there. I would say they were some of my best friends, actually. I find, sadly, in the present day, I think one of the great joys for two countries in the world would be if Iran and America became friends. Because the Iranian people have a wonderful sense of humor. And the ones, of course, that I met are the educated folks. And the university in Iran, in Tehran, is presumably one of the best places to train doctors in the world. I've seen at times it's listed after, I forget which American university it was, Stanford or Harvard, something like that, and the Sorbonne. And then there was a list where the third one on the list was Tehran University. Very cultured people, and I'm talking about the folks that are friendly to the West, and one might say disappointed with the present situation in their country, but like, what the hell can they do about it? Well, they leave. They go to places where they can get freedom. A very dear friend of mine studied architecture, got a doctorate there. I understand now, I think that she's living in Berlin as a guest lecturer. And I feel bad about it. But to be honest, people aren't going to like this, maybe, but I'll say it anyway. When we went into Iraq, supposedly for the weapons of mass destruction, which we all know factually did not exist now, it was a lie. And there are those of us who didn't believe it in the first place. I was so disappointed in going into 2004 with the second election. I just thought, this is not the country that I love. And I grew up when John Kennedy was the president. And now my mom and her family side, they were old Lincoln Republicans. Okay, mom always voted Republican. But Dad then came from Roosevelt Democrats. And his own father told him, he said, if I ever catch you voting for Republican, I'm going to come over to the house and beat your ass. I don't care how old you are. And so the funny thing is that when Nixon was running back in the days, Dad was really pissed off that my mom voted for him. And he said, well, at least I canceled out your fucking vote.
Oh! That's what Dad did?
Yeah. But I grew up with that stuff. But anyway, I think I've talked before. I don't know what has actually made it uploaded to YouTube. But what it amounted to was there was a job that opened up overseas. And I just was more than ready to go back overseas again. It was the professor position in Cyprus. And so I was there for, 8 years, right?
Yeah.
And then things more recently in our history have made me question about being in one's country and somehow putting up with the insanity. But I suppose some of us have had that experience so that we can sympathize with some of these people. I mean, not all Iranians are bad people.
No.
You know, and it's like when I lived in Cyprus, it was in the Turkish part, excuse me to my Greek friends and people I know. Turkey is a huge, multicultural in a way and multifaceted place. And I think Erdogan has set himself up differently than he started. He's now been in position for a long time and has kind of usurped a lot of authority, which is unfortunate. But there's a lot of wonderful people. Everywhere I've traveled, I mean, communist people coming out of China, they're not all, you know, fang teeth, rabid communist people. They're good folks. Mm-hmm. You know, the reality is, and I think it's helpful if people were to travel, if you can, and you should, especially if you're into this stuff and you're serious enough about it, if you can, go overseas at least for a year abroad kind of thing, or if you're really good and more aggressive and adventurous, and can get yourself graduate level study overseas, you know, I mean, do that. And it helps to when in Rome, be like the Romans, you know. It's just like in Cyprus for 8 years, I lived in some various places. I rented, of course. But I had to pay the utility bills. I had to go and pay the water bill, the gas bill, electric bill. I made friends with people because things had to be repaired and stuff like that. So I was truly living there and being part of that and making really close friendships with people and everything.
Then you come here.
No. I just was going to say that, you know, I went from growing up in my father's conservative Christianity to Quakerism, which really felt more right for me. And then in addition to Quakerism, I began to study Taoism and Buddhism. And then when I lived in Japan, I took on Shingon Buddhism. And that kind of, those kind of things is what inspires me and moves me and what I follow, I would say, spiritually. But even my wife, who's grown up with, 3 generations of Lutheran ministers, and she's very devoted to the Lutheran Church. When I used to ask her some questions about particularly the history of the Church, of course, Catholics and Lutherans even broke away from that, so can't really hold them responsible. But I just said, you know, the Church has done so much harmful and painful things over the couple millennia. I said, how can you be part of something like that? And she said, because the Church is the people. And with the people as the Church continues to exist in spite of itself. That's what she used to say. And I thought that was kind of interesting because I would say that humanity continues to exist. You know, maybe we should be knocking wood. You know, but we continue to exist, continue to have lives and do all that stuff in spite of the politicians and the governments. I mean, most people that I've met in the world, I mean, some, well, rarely, some,
absolutely,
not good people. Rarely, I would say, but in general, there's a lot of, I'm sorry, but quite a number of ordinary people, normal people, but then there's so many wonderful people, really good hearts. And the truth of the matter is if you really get a chance to even talk with the ordinary people, pardon me for putting it like that, but, and they really open up. That's what I'm talking about. I'm speaking from an artist's point of view.
Yeah.
Ordinary versus special. Like, I'm special, you know. When people really open their hearts and share certain kind of things, it's what continues to make me optimistic as I go through life. I have faith in us. I absolutely believe we could wipe ourselves out quite easily, and we could do some really stupid things. We always do. We always have.
Oh, absolutely.
But
Yeah, God in heaven's supposed to be watching us, and he's got to be laughing.
At least.
He's got to be laughing.
He's just thinking like, next time.
No, basically, no. We are the reality television.
Yeah.
You know, we are the reality. I mean, he's got to be up there thinking. He says, "Okay, let's see what Marc and Elmer are doing today." Oh, don't do that. Don't do. Oh. He says, "Look, there are rules. You don't." Oh, it's too late.
Cross the line.
Yeah. So, anyways,
talking about politics and stuff at the beginning of a show, supposedly about the piano world.
Well, let's talk about the piano world. Recently, it's been announced by Yun Chan Lim, one of our big rising stars today, Mr. Gold Medal winner of the Van Cliburn competition, has announced his first studio recording release will be of the
Chopin Etudes.
Yeah,
I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was too. I mean, this guy just played the Transcendental Etudes for the Van Cliburn competition. Now he's going to do the.
And you know, it's interesting that there are recordings of the Chopin Etudes, and unfortunately, there's a lot of idiotic pianists that decide to do it who probably shouldn't. I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that, dude. But, I mean, like, who's the German guy? Very famously competed in the same Rubinstein competition with Arthur Rubinstein.
Was it Bachhaus?
Bachhaus.
Yeah,
Wilhelm Bachhaus, I think his very first recording that he released.
Yeah, he's
and famously, were the complete etudes of Chopin.
Yes.
10 and 25. And people still, I mean, these were recorded in 78 days.
Yes.
Right? So it's probably one on each side, you know? That would have been a big ass set. You know? My God. There's 24 of them, right? No.
27.
27?
You can include the Novelle Etudes he wrote for.
I don't know if he recorded those or not. But that would have to have meant, well, I probably didn't do that, but they're 24 sides, right? 12 records, 78 jobs. Those are actually still impressive. And I remember, I think I bought a CD back in the days when Pearl was making CDs. I don't know if they still do.
Oh.
But they were, you know, looking at the old stuff and bringing it up with modern technology, compression and filters and all that stuff. And I thought, holy crap, you know, this guy can play.
Oh, yeah.
I think some other ones that come to mind are, didn't Bellini record them?
Bellini did, coming out of winning the Chopin competition.
Who else? The point is that there are really only a few pianists that recorded all of the ages. Italian dude, Fiorentino, right?
Fiorentino, Sergio.
Yeah.
Sergio.
He's a new discovery to me. He was quite an interesting guy.
Oh, he's wonderful. He studied with Horowitz.
Did the Ruskies ever do it?
Ruskies? Well, yeah, but I'm not.
All of them? I mean, Richter did never put them all out, did he?
Richter, no, he didn't. But okay, Ashkenazi did. I'm just going to say it. I don't want to mention him because, well, we have two different opinions about Vladimir Ashkenazi.
Well, I think he was a fabulously gifted pianist, but he wasn't from my preferred school of Baryshnikov kind of dancing. I mean, he was more like jackbooted dancing. There's the weight in the keys. I just think Ashkenazi was a pounder. I mean, he would just. I think, but also I was thinking about that today before he came over.
Yeah.
I was thinking, for some reason, I know it was Yun Chan Lim probably when I read that stuff about him, and as I voiced, and I think it's actually on one of the uploaded videos.
Okay,
as I've gotten older, I've always been kind of interested in the old-timey people, just in the way that my life was directed and mentored by older people. And I found myself moving even farther back. So, and now it's wonderful. They're coming up with these wonderful recordings like Raoul Pugno.
Oh, yeah.
I only read about this guy in Harold Schomburg's book, right?
Ditto.
But there are recordings of him,
yes.
you know? And then I knew I had some of those Murray Hill records. Sometimes they're reproducing rolls.
Yeah.
But there was some Sanson stuff. Now, and there was the Velta Mignon stuff that was recorded.
Yeah.
And Sanson lived long enough, and amazingly, the whole period of time was to actually record some stuff. Mm-hmm. And then we haven't put this stuff up, I think, because it didn't make it to the upload yet. But from COVID period and thereafter for a while, I managed to have a lot of monk-like time to study, and I really got curious about the French school of piano playing. And now there's stuff available.
Recordings. Yeah.
You know, and I found some things and listened to it, and it really was different.
Oh, yeah.
From what you would consider the Russian school or the German school of playing. But there's some interesting crossover things that would happen, like, I'm sorry, I got a little off topic.
That's all right.
Who's the great French pianist who played Schumann?
French pianist that played Schumann.
Early 20th century, Cortot. So there's these interesting, like French pianists playing German music. Mm-hmm. Like Alfred Cortot was famous for Schumann.
Yes, he was.
Right? And yet Walter Gieseking was famous for his Debussy and Ravel.
Yeah.
Some of the most on the edge of your seat, incredible playing of some of the great virtuosic works of both of them, but especially some of the things in the Debussy recordings. Yeah. Some of the most incredible playing from a German.
From a German, yeah.
You know? But I was thinking today, I have the complete Année de Pèlerinage on LP. When it came out, I had that subscription thing with RCA or Columbia. I forget who it was. Lazar Berman. Remember him?
Yes, I do.
I remember when he came out. Did he actually defect, or did it just open up and he was just kind of...
No, he did. They just finally let him come out.
Yeah.
They just, yeah.
And I started to think about this. If you think about it, there's the old Russian school.
Yeah.
I think Rachmaninoff was a perfect example.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Incredibly fleet fingers. And
yes.
In general, the thing that I'm attracted to with these old guys, Rachmaninoff played this way famously.
Joseph Hoffman.
Joseph Hoffman, Levine. No, I'm thinking of the Polish one, preceded Rubinstein. What's his name? I love him. Friedman. Yeah, Ignaz Friedman.
Yeah, Friedman. Yeah.
Friedheim was the list.
Friedheim was, yeah.
I mean, to listen to Ignaz Friedman play. I mean, what I love about that school of playing is that very clearly it's very athletic, very supple, very strong,
very flexible.
Very flexible. Yeah. But the one thing that gets me, it's like we don't know what he looked like, but I'm going to say Baryshnikov. Baryshnikov's a little guy. Smallish fella, very kind of light, compared to Nureyev.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful dancer as well, but I think he just demonstrated, because of his stature and everything, much more masculine presence. But Baryshnikov's famous, just leaping up in the sky, you know, and I mean, not female. There's definitely male ballet dancing and female, and you don't cross those lines in ballet. But it's when you have all the strength, musculature, athleticism of a masculine person able to do very delicate and beautifully nuanced kind of things, you know, that one might associate more with a feminine style. Yeah. I mean, what also comes to mind is tango dancing. There's the man's role and there's the woman's role, and those lines don't cross unless there's a couple ladies dance with each other, possibly a couple guys. But there has to be this kind of yin-yang balance of the male and the female. And what I like about the old school is, speaking particularly of the Russians, was they can play as fast as they want, they can play anything they want, they can play impressively if they want, but a lot of the time there's a difference between foundation and ornamentation in the play. You know, there's real levels of what's crucial and what's more ornamental. Then you get to 20th century, post World War II, Gilels. Gilels was a wise, I think, because he approached Beethoven and Brahms,
Mhm.
and he had kind of a powerful way of playing that music. But I've heard him play some other things. There's some videos that are available that the Russians have uploaded. So one time when he's playing during the Second World War for a whole bunch of airmen at a outside performance for Air Force people.
Mhm.
And I forget what he played, but it was really...
Yeah, I saw that video. It's the Rachmaninoff G minor,
Oh, yeah.
23.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't play the big B flat one, though?
Nope.
No.
Not on that video. It was G
You're
minor.
talking about the one? G minor.
G minor.
Not G major.
No.
Yeah.
G minor.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah, that's right.
And he takes it at a pretty good clip.
He takes a good clip,
Octaves
and
coming
it's
down.
really powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
And then there's Richter,
Richter.
who I always thought was a bit heavy-handed. I mean, I understand why people are nuts about Richter. I just never kind of got into it. And then there's Lazar Berman came out. And at first I was fascinated with him because he kind of debuted in the West around the same time,
Yeah.
more or less, that Erwin Yerechatsky was rediscovered.
Yeah.
And of course he was, some people had a serious banger, but I thought what he was doing in the piano was looking for
Something.
colors.
Yes. He was,
Like a conductor wanting to really make this damn thing sing like an orchestra.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he succeeded a lot,
Oh, yeah.
especially in the bringing the bass stuff out of those long strings.
Yes.
Amazing sounds that he could pull out of it.
Yeah.
But for me, ultimately, I heard Berman, and then I heard him play again. He plays in that video that Van Cliburn hosts of all these different famous pianists. Probably did it 40 years ago or something, where they all come out on stage and they do the Tchaikovsky plays. I mean, Berman comes out and plays, and do you play Liszt or Prokofiev in that? You know what I'm talking about. I think you either gave it to me, or I have it, or you brought it.
You might have it. I have it. I have what I brought over was a VHS video of him doing an independent solo recital at some.
You're talking about Berman.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about Berman. Yeah.
Well, the thing about Ashkenazi and Berman, this is my opinion, for whatever it matters or not. Part of it really was also influenced by my teacher, Ellsworth Snyder. He was my postmaster's teacher that I worked with for 4 years before I went on to do my doctorate. He studied with Verkushny, interestingly. Yeah. He had this aesthetic about beauty, and he actually had a career in avant-garde and contemporary music, 20th century music. But his Schubert was beautiful, he played. And it was just always this idea. He was also a great fan of Gertrude Stein and a lot of these wildly revolutionary-minded ideas of the 20th century. Personal friends with John Cage. He was a recipient of 1-5. He's the dedicatee of that from John Cage. I met John Cage because of that a couple times. And Merce Cunningham. But he had this idea that art, an aesthetic aspect of art, must be within the realm of classically defined beauty.
Mm-hmm.
There were boundaries that were not crossable, because when it was crossed, in his mind, it wasn't really art anymore. It was something vulgar or outside of that. And it was interesting, but the man was very complex, in ways. And yet wise and amazing influence. But I think it was due to him. He also retaught me physically how to play a bit differently, which we will get to at some point. I want to talk about the Leschetizky school and various methods, things like that. I think that's what led me towards appreciating the school of fine, beautiful playing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I'll shut up after this. I know I'm
Okay.
talking a lot. My role model growing up the whole time was Arthur Rubinstein. I still love his playing. I still believe that the man, everything he recorded, I mean, every time that he played, it was always so persuasive and so musically done and so convincingly played. Yeah, that's wonderful. That's the way it should go, you know. And I still feel like that about him. I mean, whenever I hear anything that he plays, he had I think a very persuasive way in his interpretation. But I think it's not general in a bland sense, but it is devoid, I would say, of somewhat, one might say, the older fashioned. People might say eccentricities or certain kinds of ways that older school played. But as we learned through the Leschetizky Method book, when they talk about articulation, rubato, tempo, blah, 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 all that, it wasn't willful, accidental, and just kind of happened because that's the mood you're in today. These were concepts that were very carefully worked out and were understood they had to be done for various reasons. Rubinstein also talks about in his own books about getting beyond that. Because his predecessor, the Chopin pianist, before Rubinstein, was Friedman. Those are two different pianists.
Very different.
Both Poles, both unbelievably gifted, but no way can you ever mistake Friedman for Rubinstein or Rubinstein for Friedman.
Yeah.
There's very different schools of thinking about it. So I got off on a tangent here on things. I'm sorry, but will you get back to what you wanted to say?
Sure.
But what I was mentioning was the thing that I thought about today was, for some reason, Lazar Berman coming up, and he just reminded me more of that certain kind of school which seems very industrial and machine-like and powerful. It's like this image that was created in the Stalinist days of, necessarily perhaps to empower the people and embolden them against Hitler and everything. But there's this faith in industry and technology, which I think is, until recently, one might say, kind of led our world, certainly through the Cold War and everything, and shaped the mentality that we have to a certain extent about life and things. And Yunjin Lam, for example, in his playing, sweeps us back 100 years, at least. The way that he approaches things and plays, I mean, he can be a very masculine, very powerful.
Oh, yeah.
There are some very impressive, powerful moments in the Rachmaninoff Third that everybody's talking about all over the world. But he also brings a Friedman-esque, not that he ever played that way, I don't think, but that kind of sometimes gossamer moments. And the thing is there are many cases in the Rachmaninoff where it seems clear that he's working off of a Baroque model of a keyboard concerto with the orchestra. And of course, most of the time, the piano's playing all the time, which is true in a Bach keyboard concerto. But you have to differentiate in the Bach, for example, when he's playing with the orchestra.
Exactly.
And that's basically what he's doing. And then he has his solo moments. And that's also true in the Rachmaninoff.
Oh, yeah.
Which, some pianists, I'm the soloist and everybody has to be sublimated to me. What he clearly shows is, this is my turn to stand out, and then I throw the stick to the oboe, for example, or whatever. And I think that that's brilliantly played, and because of the sensitivity and all that. And I also feel that because of the more I do have traveled and met people and talked to people, I think, like some people used to say, that the best thing about the internet and everyone having access to that, people could begin to know each other at any corner of the world, and we might be able to see what we have more in common than what we have different.
Yeah.
And what we have in common is that we're soulful beings.
Oh, absolutely.
Having a corporeal existence here. And I think more people are aware of that. And I'm hoping that that could be some of the light which will balance some serious darkness in the world nowadays. Things going on. Does that have anything to do with what you were talking about?
Oh, well, it has plenty to do.
And somehow thinking about
Lazar,
something about Lazar Berman brought me to that. I just mean, I don't like that heavy-handed, poundy kind of way of playing. But there have been some remarkable pianists who've demonstrated that that is an acceptable way to perform and how to look at the music. You know, that this idea that you just conquer and wield your weapon and just make everybody submit to your wonderfulness. And I'll shut up after this. With that, having said that, I think that's why I changed my emphasis in my doctorate. I told Mr. Spillman, I just came in the second year, and I said, I think I want to change my emphasis. I said, I like playing solo, and I play it well. He said, yes, you do. I said, but to be honest, I said, I love the give and take. And I mean, if it's a clever singer, not that often, but the instrumentalists I played with, the in-the-moment stuff that can happen in chamber music.
Yeah.
There was a violinist from Madrid in Madison. We worked together. He played in my piano trio, and I played at least his second master's recital. And what I loved about him was almost like playing jazz. We would prepare everything, but then he'd do something different in the performance, and you'd catch it, and then I would do the same thing, But we really clued into each other, and it was electrifying.
Yes,
magical. To do it in the moment, in front of people and everything. And I'm not speaking in any crude metaphors. It's just, it was wonderful. And the great thing, I suppose, about working with singers who are very sensitive and the better, more intelligent and thinking about what they're doing. It doesn't always happen, but just the fact that they're singing with the human voice and singing words and so forth, there's always a little bit of how that's going to happen that day. Singers have to deal with, daily comings and goings of things with their instrument. And you got to perform that night. And if you're not that Jonas Kaufman guy can cancel at the drop of a hat, Pavarotti used to do that sometimes at a certain period in his career. You got to go out there and sing for your money.
Got to.
And it's going to be what it's going to be. And if you're really good accompanist, you're prepared for that. And you're right there with them and you're mixing up. It's a little bit... It's what I don't like of all cooking, making candy. Candy, it requires a very specific kind of ingredients, and then you have to maintain the right temperature, and then you have to watch the consistency to make sure. If anything is off, your caramels aren't going to adhere, and they're going to be runny. You might as well use it for sauce on ice cream, even though that's not what you intended to do. And baking is a little bit like that too. It's so... just a little bit too much sugar and it's going to burn. Or you got too much moisture in it and they're not really going to swell up and cook right. The cake's going to fall. There's all that kind of stuff. I love cooking food because you can be more creative with it. And that to me is like doing the chamber music and the collaborative stuff. Because it's that, something's missing. Let's add this, and get it until you get it just the way you want it. And if you're lucky, you can do some of that on stage in the performance. I suppose you can do that in solo stuff too. With some repertoire and things, I suppose I felt that way, but I felt, maybe because it's during the doctorate too, because we got sticks in every orifice. You have to adhere to all these rules that you're learning now. I didn't feel that way. I felt a bit constricted somehow. And so that's why I did it. So that's my big talky time. So let's listen to what I want to say.
Okay. Well, can I say something about the Russians?
You'd say which one?
Okay. I like the Russians. Okay. my first introduction to the Russians was probably, well, the composers for one thing. You know, the composers. I mean, they had amazing composers: Rachmaninoff, Prokofiev, Scriabin, even Shostakovich. Gosh, in case some of you don't know, I used to play viola, and back in the high school, I was in the Bowling Green State Youth Orchestra, and some of you comrades, if you remember me, I played viola. I was last chair. We did. I remember the turmoils of having to learn the Shostakovich number 5 for a high school orchestra to do that, a youth orchestra. And we only got together once a week every Saturday for what was it, like 3 or 4 hours. And oh gosh, I remember baking in my seat in that rehearsal hall. They didn't have air conditioning. I'm sure some of you remember that. We were lucky to get that 15 to 20 minute break in the middle of rehearsal. But anyways, aside from that, yeah, I like the Russians. Okay, the Russians, they have some amazing musicians as well. The post-World War II pianists. Yeah, I would say that, okay, I mean, you took it to a point where you said that there was something steely and very, machine-like, sort of. For me,
well, Americans played the same game.
They did.
We had quite a few bangers as well.
Yeah, we did. I almost blame that on technology, though. Wouldn't you say? I mean, they were trying to advance some things scientifically, but
we're products of our culture.
Yeah, exactly. But pre-World War II. Now, can you say the same about the pre-World War II Russian pianists? You have a point there, because and one day we'll share this. I have recordings of Alexander Goldenweiser.
Oh.
And he was the dedicatee of the Rachmaninoff's Sonata Number 1, D minor.
Uh-huh.
And his playing was, well, I have to say, very immaculate. It's not, I don't believe that it's machine-like and very, steely sounding. I mean, there was a certain charm about it. But I did bring over that one Russian recording. Feinberg. Samuel Feinberg.
Wonderful.
Nothing like that.
No.
It was nothing like the post-World War II pianists. There was even the Chopin had a certain joie de vivre about it.
Yeah. Well, he was a Scriabin exponent, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And a fine
Samuel Feinberg was really great.
Yeah, Samuel Feinberg.
We are so lucky to be living in the time we are because growing up in Western Ohio back in the days, we could only get what the American record companies put out.
And I picked up that CD of Samuel Feinberg. I almost got into a fist fight over that CD. I'll bring it over sometime. But yeah, he's a
Marc Andre Hamlin has a recording out where he did all of the 6 sonatas.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm looking for a price on a used CD to come down a bit, so I can get it because I like the music. What I've heard, it's really quite
Samuel
interesting.
Feinberg?
Yeah,
Okay, good.
Quite interesting.
Yeah, and very advanced, by the way. It's compositionally, it's not what you would expect.
Well, that's also what drove him. Apparently, I remember reading about him that he was when he was young, he was quite interested in composition. There's a lot of probably better upper middle class to upper class pianists. Like Horowitz always imagined himself being a composer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then reality, especially if the Bolshevik Revolution set in, and that was that. But there's imagination and all of that. I mean, I wonder if a difference. This might be interesting. I have some Russian colleagues. Ksenia, if you ever happen to listen to us, I would be interested in you sharing maybe some of your thoughts, because she was a colleague of mine and studied in Moscow Conservatory. Then I knew her in the doctoral program at Boulder. She got a doctorate here. And her mom was a teacher in the we call it the preparatory school for the conservatory kids and stuff. And I think she might have been Ksenia's first teacher. But they came over and had Christmas dinner at our house in Boulder. At one point, her mom was visiting over Christmas, come from Russia. And we had this wonderful, and I think Ashraf and Rauf were there, 2 Egyptian friends. And the 6 of us had this wonderful meal, and of course there was alcohol there, especially the Ruskies. But it was nice. But no, what I was going to ask is, did you guys, in more modern times, are you studying probably composition and theory and that kind of thing, harmony, as much as perhaps Scriabin and Rachmaninoff and people did back in those days? Or do you have a more streamlined, I mean, we all, if you go to university, you have to know your stuff, study things.
Oh, absolutely.
But I have a feeling, I mean, all those pianists coming out, they all figured that they had to compose, right? They all did. Scriabin, Rachmaninoff, Prokofiev, all those guys coming out of there were also pretty decent composers, or they tried to do stuff. Maybe some of them weren't as super successful, but Feinberg wrote stuff too.
Yeah, that was a different time.
I know.
A very different time.
So I'm wondering if in this day and age, with that whole machine-like school and everything, was there more emphasis on just really hard-ass piano playing, as opposed to also embracing, the full musicianship of things?
With that question, I will bring you to John Mortensen. Okay,
why do I know that?
John Mortensen. You'll probably remember him from YouTube. Okay, his channel is called Cedarville Music. It's a channel, and he speaks at length about pianists, piano majors, theory majors, musicology. And he speaks about that.
I never heard his name.
Well, he's been on tone-based piano as well. He's been, he analyzes piano playing, but he also analyzes.
He's not from Cedarville.
I think he is.
Ohio?
I think he is.
Down there?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. So, but anyways, what he has to say is interesting, because he says being a musician today is quite vastly different from what it was during, say, like Bach's time. Okay, a musician back then, you studied theory, you studied instruments, you studied voice, you were a singer, you played organ, you played string instruments, keyboard instruments.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, exactly. But as you move on, somewhere in the early 20th century, and perhaps even just a little bit before that, music got so big that we wound up having specialists in certain aspects of music. Yeah. So that's why we now have piano. We have violin majors. We have organ majors, composition majors, theory majors, counterpoint professors. All of that.
I just thought it was so odd.
I thought it was interesting the way he explained, but he goes through a whole history of that.
When
why it changes.
Part of my requirements, in both the master's and the doctorate, I had citizenship and fellowships. Mm-hmm. Sometimes part of it was fulfilled with playing in studios or something like that. I was assigned to this wonderful violinist. His name was Vartan Manougian. Mm-hmm. He was Armenian, small statured little fellow, always dressed very European-like, very European and very scary little man. He was, I think, gold medal winner from the Paris Conservatory.
Oh, nice.
And he had been the concert master of the L'Orchestre de la Suisse Romande, with Ernst Ansermet as the conductor. Anyway, he was an artist teacher at Madison. And what was interesting to me, and this was different because the other violinist who I worked in his studio, I worked, and he was actually the first violinist of the Priority Quartet that was in residence in Wisconsin, Madison. They had very different orientations. The Priority Quartet violinist, Norman Paolo, expected his students to have a lot of chamber music experience.
Oh,
He also taught them, the solo repertoire they needed. He himself was a student, Joseph Scaghetti. But he really emphasized, they needed to do some stuff. So when I played in his studio, sometimes he'd form like we did a piano trio. But then sometimes I would just play some material with them. Of course, in a sense, they're learning their repertoire, Brahms sonatas or Beethoven sonatas or something like that. But we would rehearse more regularly. Not necessarily every week, but pretty often. Manoogian, I was assigned to play for that studio, and pretty much he'd tell me to come in maybe the last week before the end of the semester, and I prepare the repertoire that the violinists were going to play. We do it together, and they said, we're going to practice this and that, right? And then they'd play for the juries.
mm. But
we never worked through the semester in any kind of way. They were accustomed to working with the piano. It was very focused on the instrument. And I get that, especially maybe at the undergraduate level, maybe because there's so much to do, to learn. But at the graduate level, I just think, in my experience, I don't know about you, but if you're going to have a solo career, one, you're going to be really lonely a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's the one thing that mostly prevented me from wanting to do it big time, because I knew plenty of folks that were doing it, and they just talked about hotel by myself. They pick me up, I go work with the orchestra, practice on my own, let me do the performance, hit the train or the plane, go to the next place, hotel. Anyway, I learned from about when I started my master's level, the money was to be made working with the singers.
Yeah, yeah.
And the collaborative stuff. And maybe that's kind of out of necessity, various things that drew me to it, but I'm just surprised that the musicians, like the wind players, the brass players, and folks like that, maybe it has something to do with them learning how to really master their instruments. I don't know. And I also think it's the way their teachers were also raised to learn and do the instrument and everything. It's not nearly as collaborative oriented, And then when you play with them, and I thought even at the graduate level sometimes, there wasn't a flow, there wasn't a give it and take. It was, this is it, this is the way I do it, follow along or just play along. But what I loved after I finished my master's degree, he was one of the three members on my committee, Norman Powell. He said after we were all done with everything, we were walking down the hallway together, he said, why don't you come on in sometime, maybe this summer, let's read the Brahms sonatas together.
Oh, gosh.
This guy, was nominated as quartet for the Toscanini World Prize for string quartets. I mean, the priority has its history going all the way back to Belgium in 1912 or something like that. And it was in the 30s when Hitler rolled into Belgium and stuff. They couldn't go home, and they happened to be in the United States on tour. Didn't know what to do. And that was back when the Elizabeth Sprague Coolidge Foundation was set up. It was very interesting because I don't know if she intended it, but the money was was used to take these incoming European artists and scholars and all these people and create opportunities for them to make an income and share what they knew. Wisconsin was the first place to take advantage of it. 1938, they had the first artist in residence, and he was a painter. I don't remember who he was. 1939, they brought in Gunnar Johansson. He came from California at that point. He was a student of Busoni and Egon Petri. and had also listened to it, knew Friedman.
Yeah. This is Gunnar Johansson.
Gunnar Johansson.
Yes.
Then in 1940, Priority Quartet was brought on. And that was with the original, well, the violinist at that time was the left-handed violinist, I can't think of his name, who was a great friend and exponent of Schoenberg.
Mm.
And he was Rudolf Kolisch. He was the first violinist. And they've been there ever since 1940, so 84 years now that they've been in residence at Wisconsin. Norman came in, I think, in the 60s and played with them for 30-some years, I believe it was anyway. But yeah, he liked the way I played, like my Brahms and things. Yeah. And it was wonderful playing with him because it was truly
give and take.
Very much so, which is one of the things I want to talk about with the performance in there. But yeah, that's another topic. I just think two things. One is, how well-rounded was your musical training? I mean, seriously. I mean, at Wittenberg, these Germans, they took this stuff seriously. It came from a Bach, Lutheran, churchy tradition, of training musicians. But we had some pretty intense history and theory emphasis. And it always amounted to what we had to do as we learned is that we had to write pieces in that language and structure, So Baroque class, we wrote, all kinds of dance form pieces, And in my classical thing, I wrote 2 movements for string quartet, a couple songs in the Schubert style, some stuff like that.
Wow.
And I found that by the time I got to the doctorate, I was, just as equally or strongly well-grounded in everything to face the first-year requirements of a doctorate in theory and history, as were some of my colleagues who come from conservatories or big universities, bigger than where I had gone anyway. Big schools, I mean. So one is, and then also with the Russian people, I mean, if you know your history, has it changed, or how different is? And then I'll shut up after this, because I always am aware of how much I talk. I get rolling, but I do it anyway. I've been reading a bit more because there's more being written about him now that he's becoming more of an international character. Yun Chan Lim, 18 years old. Yeah.
Is he still 18, or is he?
He's probably 19 now.
Yeah.
Well, at least he might be even 20, right?
He could
2 years ago.
Yeah.
So how does he do what he does? Now, he's talked a bit about who his role models were, who he admired and everything. Yeah. Especially, he mentioned certain pianists that he really admired who had recorded the Chopin etudes. The interesting thing I was going to say about that is Rubinstein recorded everything of Chopin's. Everything. Yeah. Even the Bolero, the Tarantella, and all this stuff. All these things.
Preludes.
Everything. Yeah. But never released an album of the etudes because he just said, he actually honestly said, I wouldn't do them justice. Yeah. And, I could play them, but to leave them there for eternity, no. And he never recorded the etudes. But what I was really impressed by, I don't know that's got up on one of our films uploaded, but if you get a chance, you watch this Russian uploaded concert, very famous. He mentions it in My Young Years. Yeah. It was like 75 or something like when he did it. He went to Moscow and played in the Moscow Conservatory Hall. Yeah. I mean, it's like for opera singers singing in La Scala. Yeah. You take your piano seriously, you better play in this place in Russia, right? Because they've heard everybody, they've heard everything. And he plays all Chopin concert. Oh, so much stuff. Yeah. The second and third sonatas. Yes. Does he also play the F minor
Fantasy? I'm not sure if he does it or not.
But amazing.
But you gotta see this.
6 etudes. Yes. Opus 10 and Opus 25.
Yeah, you have to see it.
He plays the living shit out of them.
Yeah.
They're amazing performances. And I just listened to the guy, and then, come on, He's 75
5
years old.
Give him a break.
We're talking right now whether or not Trump and Biden are able to hold down the presidency. And this Polish Jew goes to Russia in the sanctuary of the Holy of Holies. 75 years old and plays the living shit out of six Chopin etudes.
Yeah.
Miraculous the way he brings it off.
Yeah,
so he had it within him, but like I said,
but you know what though? Even though there were some, he didn't feel technically ready to record the etudes, but just the fact that he was the one playing them would have been interesting to see what kind of musical insight he had for them. I mean, even if it was under tempo or whatever, it would have been just interesting to know what he had to say.
Well, he does talk about how he used to play the Winter Wind.
Yeah, he did.
He demonstrates that. He just goes, boom, bum, 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 bum.
He missed every note on that right.
But it sounds very
good. Exactly. And he got a standing ovation.
And he said, that's the kind of stuff I used to get away with.
Yeah.
Then Horowitz showed up in Paris.
Then Horowitz showed up in Paris, exactly.
And suddenly, everybody wanted to hear all the damn notes. He was like 45.
Oh yeah, he was something like 45.
Reinvented himself as a pianist.
Yeah.
Went into the little cottage house behind their home.
Yeah. With
an upright piano and practiced scales and exercises.
He might have been a little bit older than that because he said, I think he was near 50, at least closer to 50 years old when he decided to start working on those exercises, scales, arpeggios.
3 hours a day, just that.
Everything up, and so, I mean, he always felt he was the superior musician.
There's an interesting thing. If you listen to the 1930s, British-made Chopin recordings, I've got all three of them on multiple CDs. They're made in the later 30s in England. And then, of course, the next big set, I think he did 3 sets of Chopin. Yeah. But the one that I'm most familiar with, because I started to collect the records, and subsequently I got the CDs, and then I also have the complete Arthur Rubinstein here at this box. Yeah. I grew up with those. It's interesting to listen to the 30s versus the 60s, because the 60s are the best cuts of meat with the bone still in, you know, just prepared perfectly. The juice is just coming out a little bit and everything. Yeah. It's fabulous Rubinstein playing. Yeah. And then other times he plays the nocturnes or some of the delicate mazurkas. Just wonderful, winsome, lovely things. And then when you listen to some of the stuff in the 30s, there is a bit more of a balls to the floor kind of playing. It's occasionally got a little squeaker here or there, but it's so powerful and convincing. Oh yeah! I mean, that kind of playing from the 30s Chopin's recordings reminds me of what I said about Gieseking in his Debussy recording, Studio Debussy. Yeah. Although he doesn't seem to make any flubs. It's no perfect and incredible.
It's the German training.
But it's that there's just a persuasiveness about it. Holy God, you're going on the ride, you know? Yeah. I'm not a big roller coaster kind of guy, but if I'm on the tail car and just following the people up front, you're going on that ride, all the way to the end, and there's something compelling about it. That, damn it, no matter if you're going to throw up or, just be scared shitless, you're compelled to follow it right to the end. And his playing's like that as well. But okay, so enough of that.
Okay. Well, I want to bring to the segment to PSI at the movies. Remember this movie? I brought this
up. Is that the same?
Yeah, that's the one that you like the picture in the back.
It's still the same.
It's the same. But
it's the very same box? Or is
it same box.
That guy looks like
Jane Seymour and
there's the guy. Christopher
Gavin.
Garton.
Yeah. Or Gatton.
Looks a little bit
like
Van Cliburn.
Yeah, a little bit.
Curly hair and stuff.
Yeah, a little bit.
Van Cliburn, I think, was a little more handsome.
Yeah.
No, very, very similar.
Yeah, very similar. But anyways, all right. I did bring this movie up in sometime earlier episode. I don't know if we'll still post it, but this is the movie. It stars Jane Seymour. She plays the reclusive, world-class pianist who,
Is she also a composer?
yeah, she is a composer, and she wants to compose a concerto in the privacy of her home in a very small, quiet town. But unfortunately, it doesn't. She doesn't have this quiet life at all because this young man who wishes to become a pianist wants to study with her. You know. And anyways,
This sounds like one of those chick flicks.
yeah, it is pretty
chick
much a
flick?
chick flick.
One of
It
those
is
Hallmark
pretty
type
much.
movies.
Yeah.
It's a little not appropriate for Hallmark.
Oh boy, the jury is out on that one. There is some scenes I would consider PG-15,
Oh,
14 or 15.
so she goes to the mat.
Well, it's suggestive. Okay, Mark, it's suggestive.
Okay.
All right,
Suggestive is good.
All right, but it's a movie. Okay, but anyways, I didn't delve enough into this movie last time. I didn't even mention who the pianist was.
Oh.
Okay, and
You know.
let me know who it is. If any of you know this name.
Oh, you don't. Oh, you did figure it out.
I did finally figure it out.
Oh.
You cannot Google this name because you won't find it in the Google. But I did find it at the end credits of the movie, and the name of the pianist is Mona, Mona Golubek, Golabek. Have you ever heard of her?
I think I've seen her name listed somewhere. I'm back with other pianists.
May or may not.
But anyway.
But she is known as, quote unquote, the pianist of Willesden Lane,
England?
California.
Willesden Lane.
Willesden Lane. I'm not quite sure what that means, so I did some looking through about what she was. She is on YouTube.
You found this in that book.
Well, no, I did not find.
Oh, you're bringing this.
I just brought it in because there's something. I'm marking off a page, okay, so I don't have to rummage through it all.
Okay.
But anyways,
Mona Golubek.
Yeah, Mona Golubek. Now, for some reason, yeah, she must have been known during her time. She was a Grammy Award nominee.
Wow.
Grammy Award nominee, and she does have a few videos on YouTube. There's one particular video where she's on stage performing the jig from Bach's Partita No. 1, and she's sitting there playing it away, but it must have been part of a play because she's speaking lines at the same time.
Oh, wow.
You know, so.
So it's like a Hollywood movie?
I don't know. This is not a Hollywood. This I don't. Well, it may have been made in Hollywood, but her, I don't know. There's very little known about her. She there's a theater.
Is she in
group
the Groves?
Groves?
I
don't know.
Well, we can look her up.
You could look her up. But anyways, if any of you have heard of her, drop us a line or a comment or two below the video.
Golabek.
Yes, Mona Golubek. But apparently she does some acting. She also is an author. She's written some books.
So in the video that you saw of her, how old was she when it was made?
She was roughly in her 30s, I think.
When was the video made?
When
was this movie?
8 years. Oh, this movie. This is a 1990 movie.
Was the award thing where she's playing the Bach about the same time?
The video says 8 years ago.
Only 8 years?
So that's what it said.
So
just telling you what it says.
She's still pretty much a young chickie.
Yeah. Now, there's also a video of her giving a short interview, which was done just 2 years ago. And apparently she and a group of people who are now known as the Children of Willesden Lane were to make an appearance in Cleveland. And that was free to the public. They were doing a performance of some sort. They were called the Children of Willesden Lane.
How do you spell that, Willesden?
Willesden. Willesden as in Nancy. Willesden Lane.
It's a famous street in Los Angeles or something.
I haven't done the background check on that. It could be. All I know is it's
They
California.
call themselves the Children.
The Children of Willesden Lane. And like I said, she was doing that one video where she performed the Bach Jig, and it was as if she was performing in front of people, but she was saying lines, reciting lines as she was playing.
Does she have an accent?
Yeah, sort of a English type accent.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when she did it. So, but it was interesting.
I knew a woman whose maiden name was Gola, and her family had roots in Poland. I wonder if she might be Polish or something.
Could be. Okay, I'm bringing over another movie. This is an oldie. This one's called The Seventh Veil. James Mason stars James Mason and Ann Todd. Take a good look at it. Yeah.
Is it about somebody famous?
No, it is not about anybody. It's a fictional movie. It's a story. It's about a young concert pianist.
Oh, it won an
Lady.
Academy Award.
Yes, it did. It has sort of a touch of Alfred Hitchcock quality to the storyline, but it's about a concert pianist who was traumatized by her piano teacher.
Imagine that.
So, but anyways, yeah, it takes off from the beginning of the movie where she's attempting suicide.
Uh-oh.
And so she is rescued, but she experiences some sort of amnesia and doesn't remember her past or her story, and in a lot of ways she's lost some of her identity until a psychiatrist comes by and puts her under hypnosis to find out who she is and what her story was. But the reasoning behind committing suicide is still a bit of a mystery in this movie, and that's basically what the psychiatrist describes as the seventh veil. He's uncovered several veils to uncover her past,
Right.
but that seventh veil is usually the last one,
Well, you
according
know,
to his experience.
you know that reference, the seventh veil, the seven veils of Solomon,
Salome, yeah,
with the murder of John the Baptist.
yes,
So this is coming to reveal the terrifying truth.
yeah.
of her
So, but you eventually find out what the mystery is.
I wonder
and everything.
if you could find this somewhere online.
You probably could.
This looks really interesting. It also has Herbert Loam in it.
Yes.
Herbert Loam only is the what's his name? Peter Sellers as Detective Clouseau.
Clouseau?
Yeah, this is his boss. Herbert Loam eventually goes crazy and
Really?
tries to kill him all the time.
That guy? Oh, gosh.
But he would have been much younger. This is from the 1940s.
Yes, it is.
Because
1940s.
that was the Pink Panther was
Yeah,
the
1945 to be exact.
Yeah.
1945.
It looks really good, and I love James Mason.
Yes, he's wonderful. He talks like this.
Yeah,
One of his, come here, my dear. You know, this sort of mild mannered, a slight British. You know.
I love him in Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Oh yeah, he's
It's one of my favorite movies.
Have you ever seen him in The Flying Dutchman?
No.
Oh, check that movie out. It's very similar in the Wagner opera, but it's a little bit more. How would you say?
Really? I should
Early
look this up.
1960-ish.
Maybe I could find some films that he started
Now,
free.
would you like to know the name of the pianist in this movie?
Oh, yeah?
Now, interestingly enough, for trivial purposes, Ann Todd does do some of her own piano playing, in this
Oh,
movie, which
good
is
for her.
impressive. Which is actually
We've talked about that in previous shows.
Yeah,
Convincing and very not convincing portrayals of pianism
Yeah.
in film and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good that she
But,
could kind
yeah.
of show.
Now, the only thing I would imagine is that she probably couldn't handle the Rachmaninoff Concerto No. 2
Probably
at
not.
that point.
So
So,
it's pretty.
so there was some limits to her pianistic ability. But the pianist on the soundtrack is none other than the famous Eileen Joyce.
Huh? Who's
No, Eileen Joyce. She's a pianist. Let's see, 19 lived in 19, was born in 1912, died in 1991.
Wow.
She lived a fairly good long
British,
life.
I take it.
She's from Tasmania,
Oh, Australia.
Australia. Yeah.
Ah.
Now, mind you,
Who
she
did she
has.
study with? What's her face?
She studied with Max Power.
Oh.
She studied
Studied in
with.
Germany.
She's even done work with Arthur Schnabel.
Really?
Yeah, so she was here in the States for a while.
She's a German.
I'm not sure.
And
Rumor has it that she may have lived right here in Columbus, Ohio.
her name was
Eileen
Joyce.
Joyce. Joys or C-E.
C-E.
Yeah.
I'll have to look her up.
Yeah.
That might be some interesting stuff. When we go to edit the film and stuff, maybe I can find pictures or
Yeah.
little biographical information.
Oh, yeah,
I can throw about her.
Yeah, Eileen Joyce. She's a very. She even looks like a movie star. I'm surprised that she wasn't making movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's a very attractive woman. And apparently, there's an interview on YouTube of her. Go check it out. It's only 7 to 8 minutes long, and it talks about what her upbringing was like as a child. And she says that that the community she lived in was very primitive. It was very primitive. They didn't have very many modern appliances or anything, and that she one day discovered the piano because she had an uncle that ran the tavern downtown, in the downtown village, and she was just curious about it. It just stayed in the back room. Nobody played it, and she got curious one day when she was wandering around, and she just started thinking at it, and she showed some interest in it. And her father decided to buy the piano off off the uncle. And so she took it home, and strangely enough, she just started plinking on the thing, and she found out that there was a convent nearby.
You always count on the nuns.
Yes, always count on the nuns. And they actually
that was
had
your grandfather's.
Yeah, that's my grandfather's story, basically.
Right?
Yeah, and basically,
French one, an Italian,
and a German one, exactly. Yeah, and I don't know what the nuns were like here, but apparently they were musicians, and they decided to give her music lessons, piano lessons, and she took to the piano like a duck took to water.
Wow!
And one day, a traveling pianist came to Tasmania to do a performance at the church. And he was a young, gangly figure whom we all know made the Greek concerto famous.
Granger.
And his name is, you said it, Percy Granger. And
really
he performed the recital at the church, and the nuns came by during the reception and asked him if he would listen to this little girl who she was called the very clever little girl. And so she played for him, and he says, and he heard her play, and he said, "Oh, she's absolutely gifted. You have to take her someplace where they can teach her real music. She's done some wonderful work with her. She needs to go someplace, that will give her what she really needs."
Cool.
And so they did. So they took her to England for a while, and so this was at the age of, I think she said she was about 15 years old.
Wow.
And then for some reason or other, she came back.
To Australia.
Yeah, to Australia. And so she's back with the nuns again. I guess she might have been happier there, I don't know. But then another pianist came by to perform at the church. And we talked about him earlier. And his name was Wilhelm Bachhaus.
Oh, wow.
He performed
Australia.
Yes. He was he was in Australia, and he performed a recital.
There's the German connection.
Yes, and so anyway, so the story goes as she tells it on the video, the interview, that Bachhaus performed, and once again the nuns came over and asked him. He says, "You must hear this little girl. This clever little girl performed," and so she did. She performed this Schütze, I think she said Edward Schütz.
Yeah,
and he says, "Oh, yes, she is brilliant. He says, you must take her to Leipzig."
Studied with Max Power.
So, and anyways, that's what she did. She went to Leipzig.
That name, Max Power, I know, he was a student of Liszt's, I think, wasn't he?
Oh,
If
yeah,
not,
he was.
then I have some older. What's the
Editions?
name? Yeah, what's not the German edition that we used to rely on beforehand, like the Greenwoods.
There's Baron Rider. There's
No,
Columnist. There's
earlier, big traditional.
Breitkopf, Bartel.
No, I know. Well, come on.
Oh.
Well, it's one of those things where we'll have to flash it up.
We'll
on
flash
the
it
screen.
up on the video.
I don't know why I can't remember it.
I don't know.
Very Peter's edition.
Oh, I got it. It's Peters.
CF Peters edition.
Yeah.
That for a period of time, other than, for example, at least for us here in America, stuff, Schirmer was a big
Absolutely.
publisher of stuff, and then to some extent lesser, Theodore Presser out of Philadelphia,
Presser.
who was connected with the old university that you went to up in Delaware, Ohio.
Yeah, I was.
They used to actually the music building is named after him, isn't it?
Sanborn Hall.
Oh, Sanborn. But anyway, Theodore Presser was a professor at Wesleyan University, and then eventually went to Philadelphia and developed his big publishing house. But that, as I remember, I have my first Mozart sonatas are a Theodore Presser edition, which are pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then I remember some of the first lists that I got. Of course, I have Arthur Friedheim edited things, but and that's actually through Schirmer. But no, it's Max Power, who's the editor of a bunch of Liszt things in the C.F. Peters editions at the time. It was a big one.
Oh yeah.
Publishing or editing Liszt music. So I interrupted with that. But so she said it was Max Power.
Yes.
In Leipzig.
She also studied with Tobias Mate.
Yeah, I was wondering about
From
that. So
England.
did she ever run into the big English pianist lady?
Oh, Mira Dames. Dame
she-
Mira Hess. Yeah.
Did she ever?
I don't know if she ever did or not.
Byron?
But apparently, Eileen Joyce has her playing has appeared in many movies. So The Seventh Veil is not the only movie her playing is used. There's another movie called Brief Encounter, which is another one of these old films from the 40s, and I don't know, several others, I guess. But her playing
is interesting. It would be interesting to do a little research and talk about the pianists who did the what do you call it? The music
soundtrack.
The soundtrack.
Yeah.
For movies, and it's interesting. It would have been through the 40s anyway, maybe into the 50s. Then rock music and the whole post-World War II generation starts rolling. People don't tend to use them or need them very often, but there was clearly some work to be had in California with that.
Oh yeah.
Rubinstein himself.
Rubinstein did. Pinario.
Pinario, Jose Turbi. Didn't Bolet?
Bolet, yes, he did.
Bolet,
George Bolet did it.
Some people, and of course, they got paid for the job to do it.
Now, even farther than that, there is a movie that came out during the 80s called The Spring Symphony. Don't know if I've ever mentioned it. It's about Robert Schumann. And the pianist on that soundtrack is Ivo Pogorelic.
Wow! So he plays the toccata?
Yeah, he plays some of the toccata. You got to hear him play David's Bublé.
I'm thinking about that.
Carnival.
It would be interesting to find out who the pianist would have been, for example. His name was Kurt Russell, right? Now, who's the actor, the American actor? Started out in Disney, then married Goldie Hawn.
Yes, Kurt Russell.
That was Kurt Russell.
That was Kurt
So
Russell.
it must be Ken Russell.
Ken Russell
is the British guy
Yep.
who did these famous biopics. Well, kind of fantasy biopics.
Yeah.
He did one on the list.
He did one called Listomania.
Mahler.
One of Mahler.
And did he do something else as well?
He did a movie called Music Lovers, which was a biodrama about Tchaikovsky. And that one was Richard Chamberlain playing Tchaikovsky.
So I imagine, I do remember, it's been a long time, but I saw the Listomania. I wonder who the pianist was in that, do you know?
Oh, gosh.
would have been what, the 70s, mid
It
70s,
was.
early 80s.
I could do the research, but I think it was a pianist named Dieter Goldman.
Oh, that sounds familiar. And also,
I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
Didn't Thomas Vasari play some film music?
I don't know for sure. I don't know for sure.
Okay. That would be an interesting topic.
Yeah, that would be very interesting topic.
Because this, what's her name? One more time, Elise.
Elise who?
Your pianist lady you're talking about.
Oh, Eileen Joyce.
Eileen Joyce.
And the other one was Mona Golovic.
Okay, that's cool.
Okay, just for a treat.
This one.
Oh, you know this one?
I think so.
This is called. All right, I don't want you to mistake this as a. Oh, okay. I'll just say it's called Chopin. Desire for Love.
Boy.
Yeah, I know.
This
it's not what now.
This is not what I thought it was.
No, it's not what you thought it was.
He does look like him though.
He does look like
wow,
him.
He's got the whole nose thing.
Yep, he does. Take a look
Wow.
at George Sand in the background.
Yo.
Now,
I think this lady's prettier than she was.
oh yeah.
I think George Sand was a little on the manly side.
Oh, just a little bit. So, but anyways.
This European made.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is sort of European made. Now, despite the title almost sounding rather, provocative, the movie,
It's Polish.
yeah, it's very,
Maybe some Hungarians.
yeah. It takes place during a time when when they were together, and they were in Mallorca, and there was. Most of it was just a lot of family turmoil. She had children, okay, with them, and apparently in this movie, Chopin and the children were always butting heads.
Yeah,
the whole time. Let's see, she had an older son who wanted to be a painter.
Whoa.
And so, for some reason or other, Chopin's piano playing kept bothering him while he was trying to concentrate on his painting, and he was often, prone to having these tirades, yelling at Chopin that, stop playing for at least an hour.
Yeah.
And so, and during the rainy seasons up there, it didn't make things better for Chopin either. He was constantly sick and had to stay in bed. And they do talk about the Chopin preludes in the movie. Now, the pianist in this movie.
There's three of them.
What?
Yeah.
There's
But
three
the
of them?
big, but the big one.
Okay, the only one I know, the only one I've heard. Well,
I'd say.
okay, Janusz Olanisek.
Oh,
That's the one I know.
I didn't know that.
Who's the other two?
Emmanuel Axe.
Emmanuel Axe plays in this?
Yeah, Yukio Yokoyama, Jeff.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know Emmanuel
plays
Axe was.
cello.
I don't know.
Yo-Yo Ma.
I think he or she is a pianist.
The world recognized Yo-Yo Ma, cellist.
Yes.
Emmanuel Axe, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Pamela Frank, I actually know who she is. British violinist.
Yes.
Vladimir Brodsky, also another one.
Wow.
Wow, the music's gonna be good. It looks like it's probably made in Poland. Ooh.
What?
And it's rated R for sexuality.
Oh, come on! All right. Yes, it's okay. So rated R for sexuality, but it's not what you think. Okay. I mean, if you're looking for certain scenes, you will not find them in this movie. Okay, it's not that. I don't know why they had to say
you don't
that.
get to see full frontal with Chopin?
No, you don't.
Oh,
You do.
bummer.
You do not. Okay. I'm sorry to disappoint you there, Mark, but no, you don't. Okay. But it's more. I mean, there's some soap opera quality to it. It's for me out of 5, I give 5 stars. I give it a 3.
There was a wonderful. Well, of course, there's the wonderful video which I do have. It's called Impromptu, right?
Impromptu.
That's what Julian Sands and
Hugh Grant plays
Chopin,
and Judith
Sarah. What's her face?
Bernadette Peters
Peters, yeah.
plays Madame Marie de Gaulle.
De Gaulle, yeah. brilliantly.
And Judi Dench plays George Sand.
Yeah.
It's almost a all-star cast.
It's
Mandy Patinkin plays Alfred de Musset.
Yeah.
They even have the French painter Eugen Delacroix.
Yeah.
He's even in it, and he's hilarious. Oh, that movie. You've seen the movie?
I own it.
You own it. Okay,
Yeah.
so do I. It's
and then people can help and see if there's a way to find it.
Good.
I remember when I started to study at Wittenberg.
Yeah.
About that time, I was 14.
I'm sorry, I have to mention this one scene in the impromptu movie where the artists, Franz Liszt, Chopin, Marie de Gaulle, and Judi Dench, they take off from that lady's house. They all run out in the fields, and they find a secluded area someplace, and they're all getting high on the opium. You remember that scene?
Yes.
They're like smoking it away, and Franz Liszt is like a cat, just sort of
reminds me of a similar
like this
dinner scene with Percy Bysshe Shelley, Mary Shelley,
yeah,
Lord Byron, and stuff in the place in Switzerland. They were doing drinking.
Oh, I know that movie. Is it called Gothic?
Yeah, they were drinking the liquid version.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
There was a wonderful, a shortish series on Masterpiece Theatre, which had been from the BBC. I don't know, it was just called Chopin or something like that, but I remember it because I had my bedroom and I was starting to study very seriously at the university with Professor Wynn and beginning to collect my records, and I had my little sanctuary in my bedroom, a little black and white TV that Grandma and Grandpa bought for me for Christmas. And it worked on the antenna. At some point we got hooked up to cable. But this was always on PBS, Public Broadcasting System. And it was this series that went on for a while, weeks anyway, of life of Chopin, specifically also focusing a lot on the relationship with George Sand. And they were on the Spanish island of
Mallorca.
Yeah, I looked at the kids were, especially the son, didn't like Chopin being there, probably wanking his mom and stuff like that. But ultimately, he got in what apparently could have led to the breakdown in that relationship. He sided with the daughter in terms of some kind of argument she was having with her mom. May well, if I remember, it had to do with who she wanted to marry or something like that. And Chopin supported her and tried to convince the mother that she should let her do it. George Sand was a member of the upper class, not the aristocracy as such. She's, a landowner with a huge house and all that. But it's interesting because they present her as a bit more of, let's put it this way, the top. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
With the cigar and the wearing men's clothes and stuff like that. And so then, in a way, Chopin is exploited as the bottom. A little too femmy, a little too weak. A little too sick and all that. But I just remember really liking the show. And I've never seen it made available. Like, one of the other things I watched and just fell in love with the actor, Claudius.
Claudius,
and Sir, what's his name?
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
who
I have that
eventually
series.
did the monk police detective guy or something. Father, what's his name? So I forget what it is. But that guy, I can't think of his name. But oh my God, I watched that, and I was a total geek back then. Roman history, and Tiberius, and all this stuff. And I forget what the lady's name, the mother. Oh, she was so evil.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I remember that kind of racy thing where Claudius went to England to oversee things at the time, and his wife got into a competition with a famous prostitute in Rome, saw how many they could handle in a certain period of time, and his wife won the competition.
Oh, God.
And she thought, she's stupid, get away with anything. But he finally came back to Rome. learned what had happened, and I don't think he killed her, but he excommunicated her. Just sent her out somewhere, had to get rid of her. She was totally surprised that he would do that. But there's some good stuff back in those days. Remember when Vincent Price used to be the host on some of their mystery theater stuff?
Yeah.
And the Masterpiece
Yeah,
Theater
I think
things?
so. Yeah.
Anyway,
Perfect.
if any of you guys know what I'm talking about with that Chopin show that was on the probably some aspect of the BBC, but was came through the TV station in Boston, which carried Masterpiece Theater for the whole American listening audience. I would love to see that again, and I've never found it on YouTube, and nobody loaded it up. There's also another show I'll mention since I'm talking about it, because I have mentioned it before, but I don't think that film ever got up online on YouTube. It was the story about the premiere of the Sacre du Printemps of Stravinsky.
Yes.
And it had to do with Diaghilev's Ballet Russe and Nijinsky's choreography. And Nijinsky starred in it and choreographed the whole thing. This was presented in 3 acts, and it's all about 3 different kind of pagan cultures.
Yeah.
It's famous. I mean, did you read? You must have learned it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The audience was tearing up the seats and throwing and
did you
fighting
see
each other.
Well, I think I sent you a link to the movie. It was a movie called A Riot at the Right.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh.
You didn't?
I would like to see that.
Okay, I'll see if I can find it.
This was actually a documentary.
Oh, it's a documentary.
This is a documentary, which is really cool. It was American Playhouse Theater.
Okay.
And it first gave the background of what happened was this older British lady whose grandmother had been a costume maker for the Ballet Russe in Paris when she was a young woman. She, when, things, I don't know, whatever happened, I don't know how many years they were there, but somehow at some point, Grandma left that and moved back to England, and she brought a big trunk with her, and she kept up in the attic kind of thing like that, memorabilia from her young days and all that. Yeah. Well, they opened it up at some point and they found some costumes that had been made, and then the really cool thing is that then they found drawings where the costume designer, I forget who it was that did it, that person would be named, who designed the costumes they were going to wear. There were drawings of them with the measurements and explanations, it's all in French. And then beneath those, on the bottom of the whole box, was a ballet master's visual, however they do it, like guitarists use tablature, whatever the system is that the dancers use, of the entire choreography for the thing that Nijinsky had created, and it was complete. And it was all there. It was a single intact copy of all of the choreography, because we only knew about what happened. I don't know how many performances it got, but it caused a ruckus. Yeah, serious ruckus, because one of the things it said was that Nijinsky was wearing a flesh-toned outfit at some point. Yeah. And people in the back of the theater thought he was nude.
Yeah.
And they had a big pouch there and
everything.
The
whole idea.
And it was probably intentionally like that. And well, the really cool thing is that what happened then is that I think it was George Balanchine, who was the director of the New York City Opera or Ballet. Yeah. I could be wrong about that. Okay. But I have a feeling, because a lot of that Playhouse stuff and those kind of things usually came out of New York, maybe Boston, but usually New York. Yeah. So I think it might have been Balanchine only. But anyway, some ballet company
decided to put together.
Well, what they did was that they completely recreated the original Sacre du Printemps with the costumes, with the original choreography.
Wow.
And for however long it was, 45 to 50 minutes or something like that. The conclusion of the documentary was a complete performance, costumes,
Everything.
everything, and the music was played magnificently, and it's so straight. You know, like,
Yeah.
it's so brutish and
Yeah.
pagan. It's so heavy. It was so exciting. I mean, when I think about it now, I still remember it.
Yeah.
Just being, oh my God. And I love this idea of like, here I am sitting in my bedroom in Springfield, Ohio, on this little tiny TV, watching this in probably the late 70s, just before I went up to college,
Yeah.
because then I didn't have a lot of time to watch TV and didn't watch much. And it's like you pull decades of history out of the way,
yeah,
and go back to the famous time, 1912, 14, 16, I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
I think it's before the war started. And you could see it, the whole thing, and experience the thing
Yeah.
absolutely the way it was done.
Yes.
I went and I told Monsieur Vance about it. He was my French humanities teacher and my piano teacher. I was excited about that for a long time. And again, I've looked for it. I think maybe I did find it. I don't remember, because it seems like more recently I remember seeing it, probably on YouTube. But I would highly recommend this. It's one of the most exciting moments of musical archaeology.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you actually get to see a full performance, magnificently done. I mean, New York quality.
Oh
done.
yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't expect less from Balanchine and those guys.
And when you think about, you know, the other oh, shut up, be quiet after this.
Sorry.
I always have to announce when I'm going to stop.
Okay.
The water's going to turn off here. There was a monologue play that was actually on the Arts and Entertainment Network back when it used to be a more local, regional channel coming out of New York. Because I saw it when I was studying in New Jersey the summer with Holger Fontel.
Ah, yes.
And staying in this fellow's apartment, and he would leave on the weekends, and so I was able to watch some TV in his living room. And I saw it was called Gertrude Stein, Gertrude Stein, Gertrude Stein. It's amazing, amazing play. I found the book with the play in it, and then again, I think it might have actually been listed probably on YouTube or something. Oh, I love the film. I fell in love with it. It's this American actress. I can't remember her name. You would recognize her from a few other things.
Okay.
But she was primarily a theater actress.
Okay.
She does an amazingly convincing job of Stein. Wonderful, wonderful show. It just brings all of that to life. And I have a book, which I'm intending to read. It's on my book tree out here. It's called Charm Circle. Gertrude Stein and Company.
Wow.
Magnificent book. But anyway, I would highly recommend, if you could ever watch A&E's Gertrude Stein, Gertrude Stein, Gertrude Stein, and the documentary on the recreation of the Ballet Russe's Sacre de Printemps, and whatever that Chopin
Series was
that they did. All this stuff would have been the mid to late 70s. As I said, I think it's been probably a while, but I may have actually finally seen the documentary for the Stravinsky and the Gertrude Stein, that somebody had the kindness to put it up on YouTube. Never found the Chopin thing. And I mean, a lot of times they're reproducing that stuff and releasing it, and I don't think we're not seeing it. So, if any of you guys know where that is or how to get it, he has VHS ability. He's got a VHS player.
Yes, I do. I mean, if you were wondering about that,
I have a bunch of wonderful VHS stuff, but I don't have a player. And they're expensive nowadays.
Yeah.
The new ones, they still make them.
Which ones?
VHS players.
They make them?
You can find some manufactured, and they sell them on Amazon, but they're like $500-$600. And then I would not trust one of those machines that you would find in a thrift store, because is it going to eat your film the first time you put it in there or something?
Well, I have a couple of players. But anyways,
He
a
keeps
little
saying
tip.
he'll invite me over to watch stuff, but he never does.
We will. A little tidbit about Sacre de Printemps.
Sacre
Sacre
du
de
Printemps.
Oh hell! Rite of Spring. For any of you pianists who are really adventurous, okay, and ambitious, there are piano arrangements of this work. Okay, the first one I'd like to mention is by a Russian pianist, Vladimir Lechkis. Okay, and he's been around for a very long time. He even has recorded excerpts from that ballet as well. The other arrangement is done by American composer Sam Rathling, Raphling. They're both arrangements are done very, very well. The only reason why I would mention Sam Rathling is there's actually one recording of his arrangement of the work, and it is done by Dikran Atamian. Dikran, Dickran is the first name, and Atamian, last name, Atamian. And I believe he is teaching at the Cleveland Institute now.
He would be an Armenian. That's an Armenian name.
Yeah, but he
produced a lot of fine musicians.
He did a wonderful recording of the Sam Rathling arrangement of Rite of Spring.
So
I was introduced to it, but in college.
Didn't Stravinsky do it himself, or he didn't do it?
I don't know if he did it himself.
He did the Petrushka stuff.
He did the Petrushka stuff,
but he didn't necessarily reduce the Rite of Spring.
He might have done a rehearsal pianist version of it, and that was about it. But there is, I mean, for concert purposes, we're talking Vladimir Lechkis or Sam Rathling.
So you've heard the pieces performed. Are they convincing?
Dikran Atamian is very, very convincing. I was introduced to it by a professor back at the university. I think it was my freshman or sophomore year. He loaned me the record. It was on vinyl back then, but eventually it did make it to CDs because I have the CD recording as well now, and it's done very, very well.
Wow.
Yeah, Dikran Atamian, Maestro Atamian.
Does it take up the whole CD?
It takes up the entire CD. There's nothing else left on it.
And it's 3 movements, right?
I think so. Yeah, the introduction, the adoration of the earth, sacrifice, whatever. But yeah, it has the whole thing on it.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But it is an amazing piece of work. Like I said, I would mention this to all you pianists who are, psychotically brain damaged. If you want to really try this, okay, it's an amazing work. I would definitely pay money to go see someone perform this. It's a wonderful work, but it's definitely not for the faint of heart. So, okay, did you want to share some recordings? You said you wanted to. So, here we are. Marc is going to tell us about some of the things he's been listening to lately.
Yeah, I've been having some good studious time where I'm reading and passively and actively in between listening to some of the more recent purchases I've made this last year and so forth. I think this is from the second year, or 2 years ago at least. First thing I draw your attention to, Adolf Busch was one of 4 brothers, actually. Actually, their father was Fritz, right?
I think so.
Dad was Fritz. He was a conductor, and of course they were Jews. So his dad had the good sense to get the hell out of Dodge a bit earlier, and actually went down to South America and conducted for a period of time. But then the boys, there were 3 or 4 of them. Was Adolf was the first violinist, and then one played the cello, and Hermann. played the cello, and he's actually part of his quartet. I'm not so sure about what the boys did in all form, either trio or a string quartet, in terms of what they did. But Adolf was quite famous, and his brother's also the cellist in here. And then for us pianists, it's important because there was a Adolf Busch had a daughter, and she married. You know what I'm talking about?
Who's she married?
I can't think of his name.
Well, what's her name?
Rudolf Serkin. Rudolf Serkin was Adolf Busch's son-in-law.
Oh, gosh.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
I don't think I did.
Well, of course, Serkin eventually came into the States. Serkin is famous in that when he played, was it a Mozart concerto or something? He was young. He was like 14 or something. And he played with the Berlin Philharmonic or something. Okay. Serkin's kind of, I mean, you know, he's a very serious, you know. Oh, yeah. He comes from a very, very serious school of playing, but honestly, I've been listening to some of his playing. That's incredible. Yeah. Really, there's probably nobody convincingly recorded the Mendelssohn Concerti better than Serkin.
It's very classic.
It does with, is it with Philadelphia Orchestra with Ormandy?
It was with Ormandy.
I think he also did a recording of one or both of them with Bernstein as well.
That I didn't know.
But I've been listening to some of his playing. But anyway, Serkin, you know, came over to the United States and taught at Curtis with the other pianist, the big, long Polish name. He's famous for playing Bach and stuff, and had a whole renewal of his career in his 80s and 90s. Important teacher.
Pyotr Andrzejewski.
No. I'll have to put the name up on the screen. But anyway, they started the Marlborough Festival, which was a big summer festival. And I think it was apparently in or around or on Serkin's farm originally, up in Marlborough, New York. And, he and Vladimir de Pachman were famous for loving the farming life. Yeah. De Pachman once, more than once, said that the best warm-up in the world for a pianist's hands was to go out and milk the cows in the morning. You know, he's serious about it. He had his stool, and he'd go out and he'd milk the cows in the morning, then he'd come in and he'd start to practice. And Serkin loved the work too. There's photographs I've seen where he's got the big, huge knee-length rubber boots on. Yeah. He's got, well, I don't know that he has overalls on, but he looks like a farmer. Okay. With those glasses, you know, that like he had serious seeing problems. But no, famously when he did his debut, I think it was in Berlin, and he was, I don't know, 14 or something like that, 15. And he played, I think it was the Mozart, the famous A major concerto, the bigger one. And when he was done, they were still applauding, and he said, "Should I play an encore?" And I forget who his teacher was, but he kind of joked with him. He said, "Yeah, why don't you do the Brahms Handel?" You know, like you know, like it was a joke. Yeah, Brahms Handel variations are 45 minutes long. Oh, he was, you know, a serious man, and you know, you do what your teacher tells you to do. Yeah. He took his word. He went down and started starts to play it. And it said that he did. He played the entire thing with the repeats.
Oh, jeez.
He said by the time it was over, there was just a small handful of orchestra musicians and about 8 people out at the edge of the stage who stayed to listen to him play the whole thing.
Let that be a lesson to you young people doing an encore.
What I want to just point out in here is there's wonderful things in there. There's Schubert's string quartet stuff, Mendelssohn. There's just a whole bunch of chamber music, some solo stuff. There's a violin partita number 2 and some sonatas. But it's all, this is centered on Busch, Adolf Busch, and his quartet, or that's really interesting, the people he has playing with him. But what I listened to recently, which was I think yesterday or Monday, was the second piano trio of Schubert. I hope I can play it so you could listen to it. It's really, the tempi are really brisk, really moving. It's a very masculine performance, but there's a wonderful mirroring of Bush, Daddy Bush, and son-in-law Rudolph. Yum bum ba dum bum bum bum. Sometimes you hear yum bum ba ba bum 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 bum. No, he plays it like yum dum da da dum bum 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 bum.
Oh,
Dee bum ba dum ba ba bum. Dee dum ba ba bum bum. Da dum ba ba bum bum bum. Which you can imagine jump jump or however they did yum bum. Just a little thing on the string.
yeah.
The cool thing is he does the same thing on the piano. The articulation is exceptional. I mean, the playing is extraordinary.
Yeah.
It's really, really good. But this is a great set. I got this at a good price, too. Adolf Busch and the Busch Quartet, the complete Warner recording.
Wow.
Warner's gone in and has picked up, they bought up, I don't know what they owned, what they bought, but they have access to this stuff, and they've been putting it out. There's a number of Warner recordings, for example. They're the ones that are behind some of these, like the complete Sanson, everything that he ever wrote, their Warner recordings. And very few, I think there's Martha Argerich, complete stuff available through something on Warner. Cecile, the French pianist who won. Housset. Cecile Housset.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's some, more a bit historic, one might say, or a little older.
Yeah.
But they put them out, and it's wonderful. It's a really nice box, and there's a nice booklet. And then the buttload of various CDs. It's all
Wow.
the same picture
That's pretty nice.
of the guys. But listen, besides Sarkin, who plays anything involving the piano, there's flute, who has Marcel Moïse. Have you heard of him? Really famous flutist. Reginald Kell, the famous clarinetist, British clarinetist. And Aubrey Brain, who's not Dennis Brain. I don't know who Aubrey was. But he may have been before Dennis, because Dennis is a little younger.
Yeah, he is.
But this is wonderful.
So does she play French horn?
Who?
The Lady Brain.
Aubrey? Yeah, French horn.
Okay, all right.
And I know Dennis Brain, but these are all famous. Marcel Moïse was a very famous French flutist at that time, during that period back then. And Reginald Kell is very famous.
This is the first time I'm hearing these names, folks.
This is a really cool set of things. Now I'll keep going with this here. Let's see. Here you go.
Reginald
This is from Ivory Classics. It's called Shura Tchaikovsky, the historic 1940s recordings. And I've been listening to this. So apparently what happened in his life is that when he was young, he impressed a lot of people. I mean, he was a real super prodigy. And a lot of people, Godowsky, Hoffman, people would hear him and they thought, this is big time. And he came over to the United States. He ended up studying with Hoffman, right?
Yep.
And also, all the big boys all took an interest in him.
Oh, yeah.
And he did Carnegie Hall debuts and things. Actually, it was the Carnegie Hall debut concert that was set up by somebody. No, they set that up eventually. Mm-hmm. For some reason, he came in by way of Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And what's the big university down there where they had Fleischer taught and stuff?
Curtis?
No, in Baltimore.
Baltimore,
they have a famous medical school, too. I can't think of it right at the moment. Really famous school. You guys know.
I've got it right at the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
I'll think about it.
Famous for music and for the library and for the medical school. Anyway, that's where he was kind of discovered and heard by people. And then eventually got pulled up into the Northeast and studied there. But look, like the very first piece on here is a prelude and fugue in F minor, lasts for 4 minutes by Camille Saint-Saëns.
Ooh!
Really amazing.
Yeah.
The finger work that this guy plays. The second piece he plays is the polka, the VR.
VR?
It was the tune that Rachmaninoff
Yes.
used to whistle.
Yeah. The original composer of that theme was Behrens. Berens.
But then there's this wonderful arrangement that Rachmaninoff.
Oh yeah.
So
Dedicated to Leopold Godowsky.
Then he does famously a brilliant performance. I won't do it through it all, but just like the first things you get hit with, the first three. This says, "Oh, piece I don't know," but which is utterly amazing.
Oh yeah.
Then the Rachmaninoff polka is played perfectly. It sounds like the way Rachmaninoff played.
Yeah.
And then the Pulag Toccata, that little.
Oh, that ditty.
Prestissimo, as fast as your ass can run.
Yeah. Dedicated to Horowitz.
And I do know his performance of it because he did record it.
Yeah.
Way back when.
Yeah.
He plays it here. Then he goes through a magnificent performance of the Brahms Third Sonata. Beautiful,
monstrous,
really beautiful.
Large.
Then a whole bunch of lists, and then he goes over to his Eastern European and Russian kind of part of the world. There's a whole bunch of music by different people, and then some of this music of Gould,
Martin Gould. Yes,
and then a whole bunch of Chopin. Astonishing.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely astonishing playing. But the thing is, I didn't know anything about this guy then until there was a fellow that had a CD store when they were first really becoming popular. He'd had a record store before. His name was Charles something. He was a very flamboyant, wonderful gay fellow who always wore the glasses on the string and always had kind of a sweater thing going on, and very dapper fellow. And weird thing is that he would call somebody up on the phone if you come in and ask for something, if he didn't have it in the store. And he had a very lovely collection. It was a small store. It was a small store. It was both sides, and I think there was a middle section. So total maybe 4 possible places going from front to back. And he had a little desk back there where he worked from. He called somebody up on the phone. It was like calling up the Wizard of Oz or something. Do you know anything about da-da-da-da-da-da? Where would we find something like that? And they said, okay, I'll put it in order, I don't know who this was. It was like, I don't know, Batman getting on the bat phone. But I bought some CDs from him. Really, and the guy he had been a record guy before that.
Yeah.
And kind of wonderful from that older mid-20th century. I mean, by the time I knew him, he was probably at least in his 60s. Very dapper, still in good shape, and very... I mean, Madison was a safe and wonderful progressive community where you could be who you were. Ellsworth was gay and flamboyantly so. And Charles was flamboyantly so in his own way, too. And he smoked cigarettes, big long cigarettes in his place.
Was it the cigarette holder?
No, but they were long. But they were long ones.
Okay.
Cigarettes, long thin ones.
All right.
And he was a great person to ask, for things, And I'm pretty sure he's the one. He says, I was telling him about it, I studied with Howard, and I was interested. And then I'm kind of interested maybe in some of the old-timer people. I've got a recording of Joseph Levine, and I have some Rachmaninoff and LPs and stuff. And I said, I'm looking for, kind of guys like that. You really get it into my ear and kind of hear what they were doing. He's the one that turned me onto the Nimbus recordings of Tchaikovsky. Whoa. I have a bunch of them. I have this many, at least something like this, CDs, all Tchaikovsky. Oh, there was a wonderful period of time. I don't know if Nimbus, are they still recording?
I don't know.
They somehow came into possession of a 18th century mansion palace in England. Somebody had to sell. And I presume they kept it up nicely and stuff. But there was this grand room with this wooden parquet flooring and windows and such. But they determined, and I think rightfully so, it was an excellent acoustic place. Really good acoustics. A good ring, but focused enough that, it's almost like being in Bayreuth, where there is no bad acoustic seat Visually, yeah, maybe. But acoustically, no, because you're inside the violin. This room was, I guess, kind of like being in the violin inside. So the sound was all over the place. Wow. Really good. And their idea was to get away from hyper editing, hyper filtering, and all this kind of stuff that's going on. What they were interested in doing was create what a lot of us realize. A lot of us musicians, especially, are very open to this generally. 78 recordings, because there's also something very immediate about it. Basically, there's that horn, and you played, sang into the horn.
Yeah.
You know, it was direct. It was the artist playing his instrument into the horn, scratching that into the wax cylinder, and that's what you got.
Exactly.
And what they looked for back in the 78 days was, we don't want to do too many takes, all right? They're looking for people that could come in and just
sit down and
lay it down.
Yeah.
Famously, there's the stories about the Russian pianist.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, the one that did the etudes.
Yeah, I love him.
Son of
Mojsevich.
Beno Mojsevich.
Yeah, Beno Mojsevich.
Yeah.
There's a complete collection of his stuff, which I'm waiting for the prices falling down to get it, because it's one of the things I really would love to get. I am amazed with his playing. Rachmaninoff was amazed with his playing.
Oh, yeah.
Really, so florid and beautiful.
Yeah, according to Harold Schoenberg, Rachmaninoff and Joseph Hoffman considered Beno Mojsevich as their spiritual, artistic heir.
Yeah.
That's what they said.
He played with such graciousness and facility, and it brings to mind the recording of the Beethoven Fourth Concerto that Hoffman does with Philadelphia, probably.
Yeah.
And it's almost no parallel.
It's astonishing.
It's an amazing performance. I mean, the notes and the scales have different qualities to them based upon the crescendo, decrescendo, or the context of it. Almost like some is foundation, some is ornamental. Amazing performance. Well, what they wanted, Nimbus wanted, was artists who could basically come in and maybe 1, 2, 3 tries, lay it down. And basically, they had minimal equipment, really good quality and everything, microphones placed and stuff, and they'd set it up and turn it off. There was no filtering or editing. That's what they claimed anyway. Yeah. That's what they were trying to do. Tchaikovsky had been living in London for a long time, centered there, and had this reputation as this really amazing pianist. It was like amongst the pianists in London, only this little old guy, Tchaikovsky. And so they contacted him. He came out, and there's just CDs of all kinds of wonderful things. There's a Liszt Sonata on there.
Wow.
There's transcriptions. Amazing pieces. All the stuff they recorded. And they said in some cases it was just like the Mojsevich. Mojsevich famously, when he did this particular set of Chopin pieces, it's available on a single CD. Back then it would have been a few 78 sides anyway. He came in late afternoon in London and put his bowler down, and he had a cigar, put the cigar down and put his coat over the thing, and he warmed up a little bit, and they said, you ready to do the first take? Yep. Played it. Wow, that sounded pretty good to us back here. What do you think? Oh, that's fine. Let's do this. Basically, the guy, in single takes, recorded everything on that CD. Wow. He apparently was in there for no more than an hour and a half total, from when he arrived to when he left. And it's about an hour of playing or so, plus fills a full CD. One piece after the next. They paid him in that day and age. Come on, this is the 1930s, early 30s. 5,000 pounds. Jeez. I mean, back in those days, that was like annual income for wealthy people.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was enough money to live off for the next year.
Yeah.
I don't know what the equivalent is now, but back in those days, that was a buttload of money. And he said, "Thank you." He said, "You want to hear any of this?" "No, I think it's fine."
It's fine.
You'll be fine. He didn't even listen to it.
Oh, God.
He just said, "No, I like what I heard."
Well,
They gave him his check, and he put on his coat and put on his bowler, picked up his cigar and relit it, and walked back out into the London streets with 5,000 pounds. So Tchaikovsky was that kind of a pianist, and I think the really cool thing about him, he features in that the golden age of the piano thing.
Yes, he does.
Ben Clyburn.
Yeah.
He doesn't feature, but he's one of the pianists in it. He plays the kaleidoscope or the sanctuary, isn't
I
it?
think so.
One of the two pieces of his teacher, who, what is that name that he went by? Michael.
Oh, and Michael Dvorsky.
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 That was the made-up name that
Joseph
Hoffman used for his early compositions.
Yeah.
And I've looked at these. I want to actually learn both of them.
Which ones?
The kaleidoscope, the sanctuary, just to say so. I don't know if I'd ever get to where I perform it, because they're so difficult, because where Mozart is difficult, because what he does, he tends to turn the phrase at a point, like in the return of an idea, and then it goes off in a different direction.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be completely aware of that, really be on top of that, because Mozart can trip you up.
Oh, yeah.
Because he always keeps it fresh and keeps it spinning, you know. The problem with the sanctuary and the kaleidoscope is that happens like every 6 notes. It's like this, you know, wave of Ravel-like stuff, but like with this kaleidoscope, then he moves it just a little bit. Some of those are the same, some aren't.
Yeah.
Moves it some more. Now those notes have changed, and those notes that were there, now they change. It's this continual slight changing, and you're going at the speed of wind. And he just, you know, he came out in that performance, and he's a little tiny guy. When he sits, his his knees are slightly bent, and his feet go down. He can reach the pedals and everything, but he also sits a little high-ish at the piano, a little bit, so that his whole mechanism is up above it a little bit and facing down, and he bends over and focuses on it. He just sat down and played it. Boom. And I don't know what happened, I don't remember everything, but he made this huge splash in America. Then I don't know what happens because he disappears.
Tchaikovsky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he went back to Europe and settled. I don't know when he settled back in there, but he was in the States during the Second World War, I think.
Yeah.
And he wasn't that old at that
No,
point.
he wasn't.
These were made in the 40s, and he's probably in his 30s. So, what I do know is that, as I understand, for a period of time, he lived alone in this apartment in London, and he had a upright piano. I think he wasn't terribly busy as a performer for a period of time. And then he started to do this stuff, and then people got excited about him, and he had this whole rebirth of his career for
they were going through
10 years.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a time when they were trying new different things, and even Earl Wild talks about that. He talks about it in his memoirs about how his kind of playing was not in vogue. They were all wanting to hear
Earl Wild.
Because
I definitely think of him as an old timey pianist.
Yeah, and so
he played like the old school guys.
Oh yeah, he did.
He just died in the 90s or something.
He got past 2000 years.
He did.
Yeah, I think it was in the first decade he passed away.
I remember because I was in correspondence with his partner.
Yeah, because his
Michael.
piano sonata is called Sonata 2000.
Oh wow!
So that's an interesting work too. I'm surprised it hasn't caught on.
If you guys don't know the work of Earl Wild, he was a genuine American-born Horowitz pianist.
Oh yeah, the only thing
Guy had everything. I mean, let's put it this way: Horowitz had nothing on Earl Wild's technique. The guy could do anything and everything, and he did it old school way, which it sounded so easy. He made the most. My teacher Ellsworth went twice when I was studying with him to New York to do a little gallery hunting and stuff like that. But specifically, Earl Wild was playing at Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
He went to hear him.
Yeah.
And he came back and he talked about Gershwin. He did some of the Gershwin transcriptions that he knows. The Man I Love, I think, and then I forget what another was, but he just said, I just was laughing, when he played, and he said other people in the audience were just kind of giggling or laughing because it was utterly delightful.
Oh, absolutely.
He said it was, and he said, he just sits there so quietly, and it's just fireworks going off, just amazing stuff, and then you just hear this wonderful lyric sound, and does something, and he said it just wants to make you laugh because it's like, as a pianist, holy God, that is so difficult to do. Yeah. And the guy just like, whew.
Yeah.
He was a wonderful musician.
Yeah. I've had only one opportunity to see him play, and it was during a master class at Ohio State. And I'm wondering if some of you who were used to go to these master classes, he gave several of them when he was still here. And I remember one particular master class. I always grabbed the front row seat, by the way. And at the end of the master class, he looks over to Michael, his buddy, and he says, "How much time?" He says, "Are we done yet?" And he says, "You have 10 minutes." And then he just thinks about it and says, "Okay, I'll just sit down and play something." Now, mind you, I was only maybe 10 feet away from him, and I got to see his hands and everything. And he sat down, didn't bother thinking, didn't take a breath, everything. He just sat down, feet on the pedals, and started playing Un Suspiro.
Oh, wow.
He wasn't even pulling out a sweat. He just sat there.
Wow.
And the way his posture at the piano, his shoulders are down, both feet, one on the soft pedal, one on the damper pedal, and he's like this.
Little hunch.
He's just a little bit. Wasn't he? Oh yeah, he's tall. He was taller than me.
Yeah.
And but he's sitting there and he's shoulders down, slightly bent over near the keys, and I tell you, very, very small movement of his fingers.
Yeah.
I don't think his fingers rose off those keys any higher than that.
Yeah.
Maybe half an inch, and that was it. And then the cadenzas, I mean, just smooth as pearls.
Yeah.
And now, mind you, I remember as well, before a master class started, a friend and I were just sitting and having a conversation, and he just decided to come over. Oh, that was wild.
Cool.
Wild, no pun intended. He comes over, and
he recognized you.
Yeah, he recognized us.
Oh.
So he just comes over and he sits down right with us.
That's cool.
And so we asked, "So what?" He says, "What, any projects going on?" And he says, "Oh yeah." He says, I'm preparing to perform or record the Gershwin Concerto in F again."
Oh wow.
Then the I Got Rhythm Variations, and I'm also want to do a premiere recording of what I've composed as the Doodah Variations.
Ooh.
And he was talking about the Doodah Variations at that point, and he says, I don't memorize as well as I used to. I mean, it's going to take a hammer and chisel to get all that down, is what he says. And so, anyways, my good buddy says to him, I've listened to all your recordings. I've been to every performance you've done here at Ohio State. He says, how do you get all those notes to come out so crystal clear? And he says, simple, just don't play legato. Those were his exact words. Don't play legato. And in a sizable hall like Merchant Auditorium, I would imagine, even just putting out sound in that hall. I've seen pianists come over there and you can't hear them.
He also preferred Baldwin pianos. That was his preferred instrument, as I understood.
Yes, but near the last decade of his life, he switched.
To Steinway?
No, he didn't switch to Steinway. He he was for Kauai.
Oh,
And as a matter of fact, he was instrumental in getting that Kauai Shigeru up to par. He was instrumental. They asked him, because I was there, and this is a treat of mine. I was over at Graves, okay, mind you, I was at Graves, and these Japanese guys in suits came in, and I was like, holy moly, they were wearing these Rolexes and stuff, and they had these rings at the end of their fingers, and I said, wow, who are these guys? They're purchasing a piano? I says, nope. And Paul comes down, and he says, they're here for a photo shoot. I was like, oh yeah? He says, yep, they're getting ready. Oh, there he is. I look over, and it's Earl Wild. And so the story has it, okay, that the Shigeru fella says, asks Earl Wild for his opinion on the pianos, and whatever you say, we'll do it. And so that's why he's now a proponent of the Kauai Shigeru.
Wow.
And so he says, whatever you say. He says, okay, I'll tell you what your piano needs. And they listen to the man, and that now they their pianos.
Kauai, if you don't know it, at this point, makes a really superior instrument.
Yeah.
When they came out in the 80s, they were, well, let's put it this way, their competition was Yamaha, and Yamaha was beating them. Because I think they were a bit ahead of it things.
Oh, yeah.
And then they innovated with some new things. And that's one of the things that they've been interested in. Probably, I mean, Steingraber in Germany does this a bit with certain things. But I would say that Kauai was especially, even in the late 20th century, looking at introducing some new ways of making the inside of the piano work, some certain things. For example, they introduced aluminum bushings or something like that, wasn't it? I mean, some different things. But I didn't like them at first because I thought they were kind of a bit harsh. And for whatever reason, the action was kind of heavy.
Yes, it was.
There's this idea, and a very mistaken one, I think. I found this a lot when I lived in Asia, too. There's this idea that you can build up your strength with a stiff action. No, actually, what you're more likely to do is, if you're not careful, hurt yourself and ruin your chances. Because I've had the opportunity, especially in Madison, also then when I was in Europe and stuff, but in Madison, there's a fellow named Tim Farley, I think he's still in business, he's doing pianos with them big time back then. And they, because of a fellow that had come from Cornell and studied with Malcolm Belson, they'd really gotten into historic instruments, but there were a lot of them floating around Madison between Minneapolis and Milwaukee and Chicago. You know, a lot of old ones from families and people that had nice pianos from the day. And I played a lot of pre-World War I pianos that they had worked on, rebuilt and stuff, but they always were true to what they found in them. And were trying to, if anything had never been changed, they were trying to restore it to the way the Steinway diagram said this is the way it was done.
Yeah.
I played one that was called The Voice of God. It was in 1883 or 87. 7 foot plus Steinway with silver wound bass strings, not copper. Very interesting sound. And it had been owned by one lady who had bought it, lived forever. Her cat was living in it by the end.
Oh, gosh.
They had to clean up stuff on the soundboard and stuff.
Imagine,
But it had been one owner, and she'd never done anything to it, so all they had to do was regenerate it.
Wow.
We called it The Voice of God because it had qualities in the way that it projected, in the way that it sang. And the unusual thing with those strings and the bass and stuff, I also have had the opportunity, because of Belson and performance practice studying that, I played straight strum pianos. The interesting thing with straight strum piano, which is interestingly what Brahms always had, Brahms remained faithful to his Streicher pianos, which a couple generations back goes to the same Streicher company that Beethoven had liked, the lady maker, who had been married to, I can't think of his name, was it also Streicher, but the Mozart guy, not Walter, but the other one, Stein. the piano maker Stein, I forget her first name, but what's her face Stryker was married to Stein, and then he died a bit early on, and she decided to keep the company going and then started her own. She made Stryker pianos in the late 1810s and into the 20s that Beethoven loved. And then, she lasted for a while, but the company continued through the 19th century. And Brahms, when he died, the piano that he had in his apartment that he had written everything on, worked on, was a Stryker. Straight strung instrument, not cross strung. So I was able to play cross strung. Interesting, I played an 1864 Steinway, American Steinway, that was straight strung. It wasn't crossed. I played on a bunch of wonderful pianos. Oh my God, and some of the best were some Mason and Hamlins between 1905 and 1915.
Oh yeah.
That I played. With that thing that they have on the bottom, the tension whatchamajigger on the bottom beneath it puts out a web into the piano and it helps to move the sound out more. Basically, a 6'10" Mason Hamlin could beat a Steinway concert grand in terms of volume.
Wow.
Massive amplitude production on these things. The really cool thing about all of those pianos, the good ones.
Yeah.
Now some of them were like famously, and Rubinstein said this, I played some old Canabes. Stiff sons of bitches. Hard to play. And that's one of the things he says in my young years.
Yeah.
When he first came to the United States at 18 and played, he thought part of the reason that he didn't play as well was because he was a Canabe artist. And he said, those pianos made me fight for every note that I played.
Oh, God.
He was used to Bechsteins in Germany and stuff like that. But no, those early pianos just play. I was like, I actually kind of stole Moritz Rosenthal's way that he plays Moje Berzotka, which is Meine Freuden auf Deutsch, My Joys, the Chopin Liszt transcription. It's about sitting there and seeing the birds tweetering outside the window, and he goes. Well, I copied it, and I always played it like that, and I adapted certain things that Rosenthal does. On a typical Asian-made piano from the late 60s into the 80s sometimes, you would never be able to play that filigree that way because it was a little too resistant, and therefore it created a sameness in the sound of the things. And when you listen to me play it on a really good piano or to listen to Rosenthal really play it fabulously, it was his version of it. It's just, it's like when a bird pigeon, they do that. So that whole business about pianos need to be tight to make you strong and all that kind of bullshit, that's bullshit. Because the other thing too, I learned too, there was a period when I was studying with Ellsworth. I didn't have this. I was thinner, and I was also exploring things about myself. And I went to the gym, and I was working out a lot. And I mean, literally, there was a period of time for a while where I could stand in the bathroom mirror and do this, and everything
would show up.
All muscles. It's about that period of time when Ellsworth started to say to me, he said, you get a kind of a hardness in your sound about, like, what's going on? He said, it's very good. He was always relatively kind. He was honest when he didn't like something, but he said, there's just a kind of hardness about it. And I said, well, and he was gay, I said, take a look at this, this is like that. And he says, I'll see you tonight, honey.
Oh, God.
But then, he didn't say much the first time, but then he was thinking about it, and he said, I know. He says, you're gorgeous. It looks gorgeous. And I get it. But it's affecting your sound. And I backed off. Because when he said that to me, I took that seriously. I don't think you can't be in good shape and fit. But I really was developing those muscles enough that there was a kind of probably a general tightness or hardness
Yeah.
there. And when you really read what's her face's Elise Mock's notes in the Leschetizky methodology, it's all about incredible fluidness and fluid movement of the body structure. And then there's a guy after that. He had the book. It was too much for me to take in. He was a German guy. He was a physiologist, anatomy guy, Herman Ward or Roth or something. I'll look it up. That's one of those names that I have to look up and put on the screen. But he got seriously into, with the dissection of the corpses and everything, and looking at the musculature, writing this treatise on how the muscles worked, how they interacted, and all this kind of stuff. Very German, very scientific, early 20th century, really over the top intense. But in a different kind of way, one can see how the overworking of certain muscle groups makes it hard for the musculature to really relax. So, for example, since that time, one of the things I started to get into more was doing Tai Chi, which I still do.
Yeah.
And you do martial arts.
Yeah.
You're not a real big weightlifter, right?
No.
But the difference, what they say, the Oriental method is the muscles are sufficiently hard and or strained that they can react and do things. But due to the softness, like in the Tai Chi, it doesn't create that hard kind of feeling. I suppose if you want to play like one of those metallic post-World War II Russian pianists, then by all means, go and work out at the Iron Gym, and practice your piano and stuff. But why did I get into this? What were we talking about? Sorry, folks, I got way off into a tangent, but it had to do with
the pianos. Talking about the
because of the Shigeru and Earl White. Why? Because I had the good fortune when I was living in Colorado to play my first Shigeru Kawai.
Oh, love at first sight.
It was at D'Onofrio's Pianos.
We're hearing.
In Denver.
Yep.
And I was actually working with the Colorado Opera outreach group, where they took the younger talent, 20s and 30s, early 30s maybe. They weren't quite established in professional careers, but what do they call it? A resident artisan, not artisan resident, but resident. They were instructed and learning stuff about opera and got some support and stuff from people. I was the pianist for them. And we went and we did a performance at D'Onofrio's. And then I had an opportunity, because of that, to do a concert of my own. The moment that I sat down and was warming up and playing on this thing was the first time in my life where I ever played all the way up to the very top note. Not only was it tuned, but it rang and it sounded. That in certain instruments, either the way that it's voiced or tuned, the top octave is a throwaway. Because there's so few times you're going to play notes up there.
Yeah.
One time or another, Liszt will maybe make it that far. But Liszt was playing on a 7-octave maximum piano, and before that even a little narrower. So Liszt pretty much would go from, earlier on, F to F, way up there, and then, forget if it was A to A, which is a full 7 octaves. That A up there, but not the B flat, the B, and the C. Those were added, and of course Bösendorfer added more notes down to us, and a half at least.
Something like that.
But the Shigeru, and the other thing too is, this says something about whether or not the keyboard needs to be stiff. It was quite easy to play it. And it was the first time in my life where I felt like I was a violinist who was playing on an instrument that was an extension of me. Or one might even say a singer who was playing his own instrument from within. Everything, every gesture that I made, everything I wanted to do it responded instantly. It was my voice coming through the piano.
Hmm.
I've never quite played an instrument that did that well.
Yeah.
And in general, I think from the mid-90s on, Kawhi has continued to really... I would rather play a Kawhi than a Yamaha.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You know, Concert Grand too.
Yeah.
Another piano that I did own for a period of time, because what I've got now is what's called a digital hybrid grand. It's actually got a Bechstein Action slid into a Casio digital system, and they sampled Concert Grand Bechstein, German Steinway, and Börsendorfer. And it's great to use. It's a wonderful piano to practice on. I never have to tune it, and I've never had any necessary repairs.
Yeah.
And you can control so many elements that...
Have you had any blackouts yet?
Well, that would be an issue. But up here, actually, we don't lose it hardly at all.
Yeah.
And I do have it on a thingamajig that it will save it from getting zapped. Circuit breaker kind of thing.
Yeah.
With a dual response thing.
Yeah.
So it kills the line before.
Right.
If a sudden charge comes through it.
Surge protector.
Surge protector, that's it. Anyway, well, that got me talking about him. I mean, this all came from Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah.
You know, it was a big coup for them to get Earl Wild.
Oh, wow.
here.
Well, they didn't just have him. They had Andre LaPlante.
Yeah, the Canadian guy,
Andre
right?
LaPlante.
I have just a couple more real
Yeah.
quick. We'll talk as much about him.
Okay.
This guy, he's a Rusky, right?
Which
where
one?
he comes from. But he lives in Paris, and this is a Liszt album.
Who is he?
Mikhail Rudy.
Mikhail Rudy.
Yes. From that. I
Okay.
was listening to this and was
Wow.
just so impressed with the easy virtuosity and the poetic use of it, as opposed to, big splashy showing off like, I am such a great pianist. There's a real, good grief, that's okay. There's a real poetry and very convincing musicality to all of his playing. And I've got some other works of his that after I have bought that album, I've listened to some other playing that he had. I don't know if he's still alive.
Oh, he is.
Is he?
Oh, yeah.
He's based in Paris.
Yeah.
Sensibly, and really remarkable. And this is one of my newest acquisitions. Two of the pieces I've never heard in my life. Well, the first one is the Schumann Concerto. And then there's this Introduction Allegro, Appassionato, Introduction and Allegro, which are basically two different concerto-like movements, all by Schumann. This is with Marie Pariah and Claudio Abbado with the Berlin Philharmonic. And this is completely delightful and satisfying play. I have more recently come into Pariah. I had been under the impression he was a British pianist. He was actually born in Brooklyn.
Yes, he is.
He won some early American stuff like that, but eventually got married, and I don't know, he's like one of those folks that he probably just liked life over in Europe more than here.
Yeah.
And he's lived in London for some time.
Yeah, I remember him from high school.
I remember his name, and I remember him when he was like coming up through the realm.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the reason I probably don't know him so well, and it's true of a lot of pianists, during my lifetime, I was so busy practicing, doing my work, performing, and doing all that kind of stuff. I didn't really have a lot of time to follow anybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys that already had stature, like Rubinstein, Horowitz, people like that, Rudolf Serkin. I mean, I knew all those folks. But the newer ones that were coming through at the same time as I was, I just didn't have sufficient time to really get into them. And if I wanted to listen to something, I've always been a little bit biased towards the longer it's been around, there's probably a reason why it has so much staying power versus the newest and, geekiest thing to come out of the thing. You know, what's it going to be? You know, you want to throw your money at that? Maybe it's satisfying, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more of one of those Missouri kind of people that they call themselves the show me state. Prove it. Prove it.
Yeah.
And I've always had, probably because of being influenced by older generation people so much in my life. My grandparents played a big role in raising me and making me respectful to old things. I have a tendency towards that in general, but lately I bought the complete Mozart Concerti with Marc.
Right. Conductor as well.
Lovely playing.
Yeah.
And the Schumann is wonderful. It's really interesting because he clearly is, you know, he's got the fingers to do anything, and yet he plays. Let's put it this way: the Schumann is such, I think, a sensitive musical composition. It can be ruined by the wrong kind of approach.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Tchaikovsky, if you want to bang the hell out of it, go ahead, and you know you can get away with that. Although there are more lovely performances, like Lunar Pinaros comes to mind, or you know other people.
Yeah.
But the Schumann, I mean, interestingly, one of the famous recordings by Dino Lipatti, historically very famous.
Oh yeah.
It's very lyric, very lovely.
Yeah.
He clearly has these. I would compare it a little bit to the excitement that I have for Joseph Hoffman playing the Fourth Beethoven Piano Concerto. There's a way that he plays the lines moving in certain directions. Again, persuasive. It's just persuasive. It's like, it sounds right. Very good. Really well done. I mean, that's the way it should be. And there's a lovely, they say glove in hand kind of relationship between him and Abbado and the orchestra. Because the Schumann, very clearly, of all concertos, is a very chamber music-like concerto. It's a lot of give and take and a lot of stuff. And I love the playing in it. There's a certain masculineness when it needs to be. And a rhythmic clarity about it in ways. It's never ugly. It's never forced. But then he managed to play this beautiful theme. The way he plays it on the piano, you would think it was a bowed instrument. The movement of the phrase, and then when it goes to the oboe, isn't it taken?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
From him, it's a magical moment. And then there's these other two pieces which I've never heard of. I didn't know they existed. Opus 97 and Opus 100 something.
Yeah.
He wrote those certainly with Clara in mind. But that CD, Murray Pariah playing these three concerted works of Schumann with Abbado, I think it was one of the greatest 20th century conductors. It turns out, as I've learned more and read more about him, he was like conductor's favorite conductor a lot of the time.
Yeah.
He was attentive to details and very sensitive without getting too individualistic to the point where it's like weird.
Yeah.
That wasn't him. But he was able to find things in music that people really admired. I'm looking at some other things of Abbado as well. At some point, I'm a Mahlerite. I may buy his Mahler set if the price comes down a little bit, or I can find a used copy. Yeah. Because people talk about it, that it's refreshingly different. It's not overly done emotionally or looking for the secrets of the universe, but there's something more musical and direct about it, and yet quite convincing. I think that's an important word I've been using today. That's what I said about Rubinstein at the beginning. You know?
What word?
But convincing.
Convincing. Oh yeah.
If the performance has that probably integrated integrity. Is that a stupid thing to combine? Integrated integrity. You know, of the mind and the heart, the will, even if it's 1930s Chopin or Rubinstein or, you know, the 60s. If the artist, And who's the Polish pianist that from a car I discovered we love so much? Christian Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Christian Zimmerman plays. I wouldn't say he's like old school. I heard him play the Brahms 1 and 2. I've heard him play the Brahms 2 more recently. And then there's this wonderful recording of the Szymanowski pieces. Yeah. He's persuasive.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's an important consideration in what makes an artist, or an artist's performance anyway, not that they're always consistent, but it's the persuasiveness or the convincing aspect of the interpretation in that moment,
absolutely.
Which could lead you to think, wow, that's the way to do it. Yeah, that's good. Even if there's somebody else that you also like or admire, but they wouldn't do it like that. But just like listen to any of Friedman's Chopin performances versus Rubinstein.
Oh yeah,
they're wonderful performances.
Yeah.
And then you get some, other guys like Rachmaninoff or Levine.
Yeah.
Or was sometimes a bit questionable.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little too stretched out here and there, but I like them anyway. And I think what's there is that there is an integrity about what they feel and what they know and what they want to play, and they make you a believer in the moment, Yeah. That's why I have all these different versions of Mahler symphonies, by different conductors. And for various reasons, most of the time I like any of them. And I wouldn't necessarily compare them. I don't think that works necessarily so well in art.
Yeah.
And what is Aristotle or Plato? One of the first ones, I found a quote by him one time about the arts in competition, because the Greeks used to do this.
Yeah.
And whoever it was Plato, or I think it was probably Aristotle, hated the concept. He said, every person who, understanding that they have a certain level of mastery, is going to bring certain integral parts of themselves into the realization of the art.
Yeah.
And why compare that to anybody else or anything else? Why not just appreciate it for what it is? I suppose I would add on to that. I don't think he was saying that, but I think it might have been implying it. Because it's made by humans, it's foundationally incomplete, right?
Yeah.
There is no such thing as perfection.
No.
I mean, there are some situations. I mean, the live performance of the 2 Brahms concerti with Zimmerman, as far as I can tell, is no perfect.
Yeah.
It seems perfect, but you know what I mean? It's
perfectly Zimmerman.
It's perfectly Zimmerman, yeah. But one might say that a truly great composition, Bach is one of the best examples. Yeah. You can do anything to Bach's music. It's been done. Yeah. Swingle singers, jazz, the musicians in the Yuri, what is his name, on the accordion and stuff like that.
Oh.
I mean, you can do anything to Bach. You can do Bach by Glenn Gould, or, Bach by the famous Rosalind Turek, or Landowska. I mean,
is that the Polish Bach player thinking about?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
But a really great work of art, I think, especially if it has staying power or something like that, if it sees itself through different generations, different cultures, there must be something superhuman, which means mystically connected with divine energy. I mean, where does the creativity come from? But I think there must be some aspect of that. And I believe, Quakers, a Buddhist in various kinds of ways, we have that of God within us, to reveal to ourselves and to reveal to the world, and that we're inextricably part of the God's divine consciousness, and God's creation, in a sense, all of it dissolves back into energy, matter, vice versa. But we're not God.
No, we're not God.
We have that of God within us and can demonstrate amazing things at times. I don't mean to upset any Christians, but even so, when God appeared corporeally as a human being, as Christ, as Jesus, there were necessarily aspects of him being incorporated as a human being that made him appeal to us, because that's the way he could communicate with us and be with us, And I know that's a touchy subject with people, because certain people believe that, that's different there, that it was God not really as a human, but he did incorporate. From my point of view, that's part of the loveliness of it. That was the way he knew he could get his message across, because he tried a lot of times in the Old Testament as God, never seemed to quite get their attention. Here I go. I started out with politics, and now I'm talking about Christianity. And you got to go to work.
Hour.
Yeah,
we're on our third hour, and I'm thinking.
But did we do a good job?
We did an excellent job.
You didn't get to show everything.
No, I didn't get the next time. Okay, I did bring in some really interesting.
He's always got lots of toys to share.
Yeah, especially what I. Oh gosh, wait. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But
this was interesting. These films and these pianos.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. We got to hear
I think
about
that's one subject could be, as if we did a little research, you could do it.
Okay.
Since you're interested in it.
Oh yeah.
So if we can find out the names and the lives of those Hollywood or even British filmmaking, possibly even German,
absolutely,
especially in the earlier 20th century, musicians who would have done the soundtracks for these things. That would be kind of an interesting, just little topic, I think.
Well, look, folks, if you liked our content today, please subscribe. Please give us a thumbs up. Give us a few comments, what you'd like to hear us talk about.
And go to our Facebook page as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is our forum presently for being able to join in our conversation. Yeah. Hopefully, I got 5 in the bucket right now to get edited and uploaded. And once that's done, hopefully I want to get it to where I can edit and upload from the previous week.
Yeah.
So that these things are going to be pretty contemporaneous.
Yeah.
So you'll be getting this stuff out. Fortunately, we've had other discussions that were really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Which never made it to our YouTube page.
Yeah.
So we can do them again.
Yes, we will.
And introduce some really cool topics. Some of them are pretty fun.
Yeah. I remember some of the projects we were talking about.
Yeah.
If you were going to throw a party,
that's
name 10 composers you would like to invite.
Why would
you do that? Yeah. And the second project was 5 musicians you would like to meet when you get to heaven.
We haven't done that yet.
You haven't done that
We
yet?
haven't actually done that on the film yet. We talked about it.
We talked about it.
Did you do yours?
I think, we haven't. I haven't given you mine.
I haven't done mine either.
Okay, so
that's what I mean. We haven't actually dealt with that one on film.
On film, on video, yeah.
We've done the party one, but you guys wouldn't know because it never made it to YouTube. We got a bunch of archival stuff so that what you can enjoy sometime in the future.
Yeah.
When we get really wealthy from this, when we have a gajillion subscribers, we'll release some special edition CDs or
bloopers,
DVDs of past shows in the archives.
Yeah.
I still have most everything that we managed to save that we recorded. Yeah. But I don't have the wherewithal, time-wise, or energy to pull all that stuff up and upload it. So.
Okay.
Well, I thought it was just fun today.
Oh, it was very fun.
I talked a lot, but did you talk enough?
I think I talked enough. I mean, I had said what I wanted to say about these.
Do we have time doing this?
Oh, I had great time doing it.
Okay. I hope you guys did too.
Yeah.
Again, the longer ones, you can always just put it on, watch a little bit, watch some later.
Yeah.
Or put it on, clean the house.
Yeah. Put
it on, prepare a massive dinner. It's just about long enough for that.
Yeah. Well, folks. Mark.
I'm Mark.
Elmer.
This is PSI, Piano Scene Investigations. We'll see you next time.
Look for us.
Actually, it's this one. It's the magnifier.
Yeah, I know it's a magnifier. Well, why can't I use
You can do
binoculars? I like binoculars.